to the Foul Play YouTube channel. Reading with the Crew, The Aftermath, Part 7.
Awesome. Thank you so much there, Jack61, and a warm welcome to everyone on the panel and everyone in chat. And no matter what format you're listening on X or YouTube or I think on Face. What's the other platform there, Jack61?
Oh, we're on X and we're on Facebook as well.
And Facebook as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, look, guys, we're not going to muck around today. We have a special podcast for you guys that we're very proud to present. Hopefully, it won't take too long today, but it is a slight departure from our Reading with the Crew series. It definitely involves Brendan Dassey. And as you guys know, we've spent the last several months deep diving into Brendan Dassey, his so-called confession on March the 1st, and also the aftermath of what occurred to him. And it's interesting that recently there was a document dump, right, Jack61? They released a whole lot of documents, DCI reports, CASO reports, that were unfortunately very heavily redacted. But there was one diagram that was released that Brendan drew when he was at Fox Hills that really had made me go back and do a deep dive on the diagram and what he drew. So today's podcast is going to be a very special one. So guys, we're not going to muck around. We're going to get started. But first of all, I'd like to introduce our esteemed panel. We have Jack61. Jack61, welcome, good sir. How are you coming along?
I'm doing very well. It's been an interesting week. It was a lot of information, from last week and the document dump. And then, of course, with Remaker. Speaking of Remaker, I also want to say hello to everyone in the live chat. Of course, Christina as well has joined us. Not sure if anybody else is going to pop in tonight, but we do have a question from Hugh about if we can talk up. Yeah, he actually was in the beginning before we ever went live, talking about Remaker. So if you want to do that now or before we get started, that's fine. After Christina says hello, that's fine. If you want to hold it until later, that's fine too. It's your show, Doc. Up to you.
Yeah, I reckon we can answer the questions at the end. We'll get the podcast started, and don't worry, we'll answer all your questions. So just put a queue, and we'll answer your questions at the end of the podcast. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jack61, and we welcome Sunshine Christina. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Dr. Silkman. Hi, Jax. Hi, everyone in chat. I'm excited to see what you have in store for us this evening. It's going to be a good one. It always is.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sunshine Christina. And again, guys, welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Silkman. I'm from Adelaide, South Australia, and it's great to be here. Guys, the only thing that we ask is please be civil in your discussion. If you have any questions, place a queue, and we'll try and answer your questions towards the end of the podcast. And please excuse my voice. I've got a bit of a sore throat. But Jack61, if we can have the very first slide, please. All right. So as you know, guys, we've been doing a brand new series, a Reading with the Crew series, where we've been doing a very deep dive into Brendan Dassey. And as you know, guys, Brendan Dassey was arrested on March the 1st. He's been sitting in prison for over 18 and a half years. And it's a complete tragedy. And today we have a special presentation regarding Brendan and his observations and his comments that he made. So, guys, if we can have the if we can have the very first slide. All right. So what's this presentation all about? The title is Stephen Avery's Garage Floor, Brendan Dassey, the Suzuki Samurai, and the Snowmobiles. And trust me, guys, you think you know the case, but it's incredible that when you do a deep dive, right, Jack61, right, Sunshine Christina, you find more information that you never saw before. It just
Oh,
went over your head, right, guys?
yeah. And
Oh my
even
God.
for me, when you know, because I took some time off and I've done that a couple of times, and coming back, you can read stuff that you've read 10, 12 times, and it hits you differently because
Yep.
you've got life experiences and just, you know, time for it to kind of process in the back of your brain.
Well,
It's
other information, you get a hold of other information too.
Oh, 100% correct.
definitely.
Correct. So it's amazing, right, guys? We're learning all the time, and we're very fortunate here at Foul Play. We have a very extensive document library available for free, available for anyone to do their own private research. So what we're going to do today, guys, we're going to do a deep dive analysis. Now, the inspiration for this podcast came from the diagram that Brendan drew on the 27th of February, when Tom Fassbender spoke with Brendan and also Barb, and Blaine was there too at Fox Hills. I looked at this diagram for a very long period of time, and it didn't really make any sense to me. So I wanted to deep dive, and it's incredible what I've learned, what we have all learned. What we want to do today, guys, is to unpack this diagram. It actually explains a lot. There was only one problem with Brendan, and I'm sure everyone here on the panel and in chat. Brendan Dassey is a very difficult person to decode, very difficult person to follow what he's talking about. And he had left all these breadcrumb clues everywhere when he talked to the investigators, when he talked to family. And this diagram is absolutely critical. And it sent me on a deep dive to find out what Brendan was actually talking about. Now, Jack61, correct me if I'm wrong, and Sunshine Christina, this diagram that Brendan drew at Fox Hills was only released like a month ago. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. We've never
Okay.
seen it until then.
Okay. Now, remember, guys, none of us has seen this diagram previously. It only got released last month. And when I looked at it, I was staggered. I didn't really fully understand or appreciate it. All right, so we're going to deep dive. And guys, hopefully the podcast won't take too long, but there's a couple of very important messages that I've learned about this deep dive analysis. Jack61, if we can have a look at the very first slide, the next slide, please.
Just before we do that, I wanted to
Yeah.
thank Scooby for the very kind comment. You know, for me, and I'll just say this briefly, I promise. For me, you know, getting these documents, things that were never seen publicly or turned over at trial that were easily obtained, has been my goal, because I feel strongly that there's information that no one has seen yet that is very crucial to
There-
the case up, right?
There's no question. There's no question. And your effort, Sunshine Christina's effort, and many others who have FOIA documents,
Yep.
guys, if it wasn't for your hard work, a lot of these so-called Rosetta Stones and keys to the case would never be uncovered. And it's through your hard work and dedication that now we can start to see things that we never saw before.
That's
Right?
right.
And it's amazing how the case is now starting to take on a very different look and a very different perspective. Why? Because we've now got more information.
That's
Right?
right.
So
But
don't-
a lot of, as Doc said, a lot of hard work. The website was created and put up. Zoe and I can't think of her name now. They did all this work to.
Kate, was it Kate?
I'm sorry.
Katie?
Well, yeah. But there was another one that actually set the website up. She's not around anymore.
Yes. Yeah.
But regardless, all that set up, get these documents out, the YouTube channel, a lot of work by a lot of people that you don't really see that often, but they're still there. They still
100%
believe.
correct. 100% correct.
It's
We
sort of
want
like,
yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah,
sort of like the microphone that I'm using. It's actually here because of Eric Cozy. You know what I
yep,
mean? Like, and it's amazing how we have created our own little universe of people who just want to see the truth and their legacy, you know, because is still helping to endeavor for that. And I just find that really impactful.
look how much we've discovered since Sarah Cozy passed away. He would be blown away. I promise you. I've had
Oh yeah.
many conversations with Eric Cozy.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
telling you, he would be blown away. Anyway, I just wanted to, we're like you out there asking questions. We just want,
Correct.
and if I thought these guys were guilty, I wouldn't be here. Doc wouldn't be here. Christina
Correct.
wouldn't be here. We'd be
Correct.
moved off to doing something else. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. So we want to help everyone come to their own conclusions, right?
Correct. Correct.
And honest, and let's not forget about, you know, Teresa's family and Teresa. We want to know what really happened to her.
They
We
deserve to know.
and the truth of her life and her disappearance should not be manipulated to a point where people who knew her have now been left with an impression that's not at all accurate. And I find that, you know, I find
Yeah.
that one of the biggest tragedies of it as well.
100%.
Yes. Yep, 100%. And unfortunately, I think the Delphi murder case is going to end up being the same, right? It's don't get us started on that one, right? But yeah. So if we have a look at this very first slide, this is a very, very important slide. And this photograph was taken by Trooper Reese on November the 6th, 2005. What this photograph shows is Stephen Avery's Ford F-350 pickup truck. And it's parked in front of the garage. And you can see that the garage door is shut. What's important to note is that Brendan Dassey had left for Crivets on the evening of November the 4th. He went with his uncle, Chuck. They went to Crivets one day prior on November the 4th. Stephen Avery left for Crivets on the morning of November the 5th. And as we know, Pam Sturm and her daughter Nicole discovered Teresa's RAV4 on the Avery salvage yard on the morning of November the 5th, around about 10:30. So why is this picture so important? Well, what it was discovered, and that's through reading a lot of testimony and going through all the documents, is that on the eastern side of that garage, right, on the left, as you see it, there was a Suzuki Samurai. Now, family members had seen this vehicle, the Suzuki Samurai, that was parked on the left-hand side or the eastern side of Stephen Avery's garage. Several family members have commented that they saw the Suzuki Samurai for around about 1 or 2 weeks prior to October the 31st. However, there was a witness who saw the Suzuki Samurai on October the 31st. That's very, very interesting. Okay, and we'll talk about it. This particular Suzuki, it had a broken clutch. It didn't run. And the reason why it didn't run, it had a broken clutch and it had transmission problems. My understanding was that the Suzuki Samurai was brought back from Crivets and it did not run. So Stephen had placed it next to his garage. It didn't run. In order to move it, it had to either be towed or pushed. That's very, very important. Now, Stephen was repairing the Suzuki Samurai for his dad, Alan. to use at Crivets. There's another vehicle that was also outside, same place, and that was Stephen's Skidoo snowmobile. That was also parked outside where the Suzuki was. These two vehicles are going to be very, very important in our discussion. Critical, actually. These two vehicles, especially the Suzuki Samurai, right, Jack 61, right, Sunshine Christina, gave nightmares to Mr. Kratz. Would you agree? It was a huge problem for the state. Okay. And I never really appreciated it until I saw the diagram, the figure that Brendan drew. So we know that Teresa Hallbach had photographed Barb Yunder's van at around about 2:35 p.m. on October the 31st. Now, there are different stories and different narratives of what occurred next. So the big question is this: did Teresa Hallbach leave the Avery salvage yard on October the 31st? Now, there's been plenty of arguments for and against Teresa Hallbach leaving, and we've done hundreds of podcasts, right, guys, over this very fact. We talked about Brendan Dassey's observations, we talked about Blaine, we talked about Stephen, and we talked about Bobby Dassey many, many times. So the question is this: if Teresa Hallbach did not leave the Avery salvage yard after she took the photographs of Barb Yunder's van, the question we need to ask is, where was Teresa and where was her RAV4? Guys, do you think that's fair? They're big questions to ask. If Teresa never left, Sunshine, do you have a comment?
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Okay. If Teresa never left, there are multiple issues. Where's Teresa? Where is she? Where's her RAV4? And her RAV4 is a fairly big vehicle, right? Where is it? Now, Mr. Kratz asked Blaine Dassey a couple of very important questions during Stephen Avery's trial testimony. Can we have the next slide, please, Jack 61? Now, for those who are new to the case, both Brendan and Blaine were at school that day, October the 31st. The school bus driver lets them off at the top of Avery Road at around about 3:45. So Mr. Kratz had asked Blaine a couple of very important questions. Sunshine Christina, do you see the slide?
Yes.
Are you happy to read the questions, which is Ken Kratz? Jack 61, do you see the slide?
Oh, yeah.
Would you like to do Blaine?
Sure.
Okay, so this is during the Stephen Avery trial. Let's go for it, guys.
Now, when you walked home or walked from the bus to your house, you told the jury that you saw the Suzuki parked outside. Is that right?
Yes. 3:45.
Can you point to the diagram and tell the jury where you saw that Suzuki parked that day?
Right there.
And you are pointing to the outside of what would be Stephen Avery's garage, just to the left side, as you look at the diagram. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you notice any other things or any other vehicles out there when you walked home that day?
Well, there was a snowmobile. No mention of Teresa's RAV4.
Do you know whose snowmobile was outside?
Okay, before we continue, so guys, I think you know what Mr. Kratz is alluding to here. But it's interesting that Blaine Dassey, when he comes home from school, he notices both the Suzuki and the snowmobile parked next to Stephen Avery's garage. But it's very interesting what Blaine said. He had noticed, didn't mention Teresa, and didn't mention a RAV4. Guys, would you agree?
Yep.
So at 3:45, there's no sign of Teresa that they can see, that Blaine could see. No sign of a RAV4, Jack 61.
Oh, sorry, John.
Yep. Okay. That's very important. So shall we continue the next slide, please? This is the same this is the same questioning during the trial.
Yes, Stevens.
Where was the snowmobile parked, if you remember?
In the back of the or behind the Suzuki.
Can you show us where that would be, please?
Like right there.
So near or right next to the Suzuki, on the left side or on the outside of the garage. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, I'm just asking you about your observations, Blaine. I don't know. I don't care who you talk to or what somebody might have said, but just what you saw with your own eyes, okay?
Okay.
Do you remember seeing with your own eyes or remembering your own observations, whether or not that Suzuki and that snowmobile were moved somewhere else at some point after the 31st of October?
I'm not sure. No. Pick up 5:36 p.m. Drop off 8:15, 8:30 p.m.
Okay. You just remember the 31st, that they were next to the garage. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let me tell you right now, right, Jack 61. What Blaine said was a critical answer. I'm not sure, no. So when he came home from school, he had noted both the Suzuki and the snowmobile parked outside, but he had no idea what had happened after. Agree?
That's right.
Because he said, I'm not sure, no. What Kratz failed to explain during this line of questioning was that Brendan Dassey was not home for the entire evening. Brendan Dassey got picked up by Carmen Wench around about 5:30 to 6 p.m. He was taken trick or treating. Brendan Dassey was dropped off, according to Carmen Wench, around about 8:15 to 8:30. Notice that Kratz didn't ask Blaine, hey, when you came home from trick or treating, did you notice the Suzuki? Did you notice the snowmobile outside? Why didn't he ask that, Jack 61?
Well, I think he didn't want it known.
Correct. He didn't want it on the record. He
No.
wanted to leave it open, correct?
That's
So
right.
now, yep. So now he's got an eyewitness, Blaine, says, hey, look, when I came home from school at around about 3:45, I noticed the Suzuki. I noticed the snowmobile parked outside Stephen Avery's garage. That's it. Kratz failed to mention that Blaine wasn't there for the whole evening. He went trick-or-treating and he came back. Guys, check the time that Blaine was away. Let's do the parameters, between 6 and 8:30. That's 2.5 hours that Blaine has got no eyes on the Suzuki or the snowmobile. Is that fair enough? Yeah?
That's right.
Blaine's got
That's
no
right.
idea. He's off
No.
the property.
He's
gone
gone.
trick-or-treating. Right?
Yeah.
Look what Kratz says next in the same trial. Sunshine Christina, do you see the slide? Are you happy to read that one? We'll just wait for the next slide to come up.
Yes. Are we at
Slide
sorry,
A5. We'll just wait for Jack 61 to put it
Okay.
up. So this now is during Stephen Avery's trial. I think it's the summation. Look what Kratz says.
Mr. Dassey, importantly, also testified, and please remember this, before our break, Mr. Dassey testified that the Suzuki and the snowmobile that you see pictures of inside of the garage on the 31st of October weren't in the garage. Remember that. They weren't inside of the garage as the picture shows. But the 31st, the Suzuki and the snowmobile are on the side of the garage, leaving this garage opened, at least open to the point where something else can fit into that particular garage.
Of course he said that.
Okay. Now, talk about speculation. Mr. Kratz didn't get all the facts from Blaine. Blaine had no eyes on the Suzuki or the snowmobile because he was off the property. Blaine was never asked, hey, when you came home, did you observe the Suzuki? Did you observe the snowmobile? Right? Wasn't asked that. Now, look what Kratz is cleverly constructing. He's now showing the potential avenue that the reason why no one saw Teresa's RAV4 is because it was parked inside where, guys? Stephen Avery's garage, right? Although he had no evidence whatsoever, he's now stating that the Teresa's RAV4 was parked in the garage. Why? Because the Suzuki and the snowmobile were outside. So there was plenty of room in the garage. Oh my God, Stephen had placed Teresa's RAV4 in the garage, right? So
you know what's interesting though? You see how he never actually says it? He just implies it. And
yes.
That's because he knows it's not accurate.
He's got no proof. But it gets worse. It gets much worse. So in effect, what Mr. Kratz is doing is using Brendan Dassey. He's using him. And he also used Blaine to say that when Blaine came home, he saw Stephen Avery at a fire at 11 o'clock, which was impossible because Blaine was inside at no later than 8:30. So Kratz is using Blaine as a very convenient tool. But Jack 61, you're about to get really angry. Look what Kratz says next, right? So this is a part of the closing statement. Sunshine, are you happy to continue reading?
Yes.
Okay. You look what he says now.
You heard from Brendan Dassey, importantly, that the garage, other than the junk on the surrounding edges of this garage, looked pretty much like this. From the sense of the Suzuki and the snowmobile, which were in there later on that week, were on the side of the garage at the time. So Teresa Halbach's vehicle is backed into the garage.
Notice what he said.
Yeah.
Notice what he said.
Wow, backed in. Teresa Halbach is killed. She's laying down. She's shot twice, once in the left side of her head, once in the back of her head, or I guess I should more accurately say she's shot at least twice because 2 bullets were found. 2 entrance wounds were found to her head. We do have the 11 shell casings on the 6 that were recovered. How many times Mr. Avery actually shot this poor girl? You probably aren't going to be able to determine, but it's at least twice, and it's at least twice to the head.
Jack 61, do we have any comments, good sir?
Well, I thought this son of a bitch said that Teresa. I never said Teresa was shot.
You saw
with those 2 bullets.
You saw it right there. Okay. There's no question of exactly what Kratz is saying. that, remember, this is Stephen Avery's trial. Was Brendan Dassey called to testify during Brendan Dassey's trial?
Absolutely not.
Were any of Brendan Dassey's confessions brought into Stephen Avery's trial?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
But Kratz is making a definitive statement. The raffle was backed in. Teresa Horbach was killed in the garage. Remember what he said? Shot twice in the head. We've got 2 bullet fragments. We've got 11 shell casings. Boom. What did Mr. Kratz call Ida Mafel? It was his...
Ace
What
in the
was it?
hole.
Yeah,
Ace in the
yep.
hole.
And also, what did he call it in his book? It was his game
Oh, the game changer.
changer. Right? It was his game changer. So now you can clearly see what he's presenting to the judge and the jury. And the jury are hearing all this thinking, oh my God, this is horrendous. So Stephen had hid Teresa's RAV4 in the garage, and oh my God, he had shot Teresa Horbach in the garage. He killed Teresa Horbach in the garage, right? Be under no illusion, guys. Is that exactly what Kratz is presenting? Yes or no?
Oh, yes, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yep. No question at all, right? And of course, sorry, Sunshine, do you have a comment?
No.
All right. And people in chat as well, give us your comments. Tell us what you think, right? Here's what Kratz is presenting during the trial, right? Jack 61.
Well, this really makes me angry because he said for years, after at least since Ma'am came out, well, I never said we never said that in court she was shot in the head. But the entire time that the trial has went on, basically from the opening statements, he's paraded these 2 bullet fragments and these 2 skull fragments.
I think
What
it's
is, and now he says it. I'm sorry, Christina. Now he says it. Go ahead, Christina.
I just want to say, I think it's important that we let people in chat who may not know what we did not know until we began researching this case. And that is that the prosecutor's opening and closing statements are not evidence.
They're not evidence.
So they're allowed to tell and weave whatever story they want.
That's right.
Within a certain parameter, but it's not illegal. They can't legally be found. It's not a way to get a new trial if they greatly exaggerate or lie.
Correct. You got to consider the forensic evidence, but it's planting the seeds in the minds of the jury. Jack 61.
Well, that's right. It's and it's strange, we heard these arguments also for years. Well, it doesn't really matter what they say in their opening and closing. Well, of course it matters. It's a chance for the prosecution and the defense to influence a jury.
That's right, because what you're doing is you're giving them a story of a crime, and if the story is compelling enough, you can sell them on a fake story of a crime, and that's how people get wrongfully convicted. Correct. So the justice is only going to be obtained if the person who's tasked to seek justice on behalf of the state and the victim are actually endeavoring to be truthful and honest in doing so. And that's not what happened here.
Correct. So I went through the trial testimonies, as we all have, and Kratz said, I have a theory and I'm allowed to have a theory. Exactly what Sunshine Christina said. So he's rambling on. He's trying to put it all together as a nice, neat package. Now, if we look at the next slide, this is incredible. So the next slide shows what the state's position actually is, right? Now, remember, they got Trooper, I think it was Trooper Austin. And Trooper Austin, took over, I think it was over 4,000 or a huge number of measurements of the garage of the entire Avery salvage yard. The jury never got the chance to go out to the salvage yard and have a look at the critical buildings. Stephen Avery's garage was not very, very big at all. Jack 61.
That's a mighty clean garage from the photos I've seen. I'm just
Yep.
saying.
Yep. And it's interesting. I'll get you on the sex, Sunshine Christina. Trooper Austin, he was questioned during the trial. He goes, well, how did you come up with these pictures? Oh, I was asked to remove certain objects. And I think it was Strang said, oh, you just click a button and the object disappears. And he goes, yes. So you can present a false narrative of how the garage looked. Guys, would you agree? You just simply delete what you don't want.
That's right.
You
And
just
there were big arguments in the pretrial about this between
Correct.
Strang and Buting and the state.
That's correct. Sunshine.
I am. So this whole thing right here, this image, Trooper Austin, I really went on a deep dive and did some open records and got us some great information as a result of trying to understand it, because Trooper Austin, in I believe it's Stephen's trial, is going to mention that he got his impressions of the scene from Eisenberg's gruesome details of the burn pit. And I was like, the report she wrote about the gruesome details of the burn pit. And I'm like, she never went out there. What report did she write? And so that sent me on a hunt trying to get this so-called report, which yet to receive. But yeah, this whole thing leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Isn't this called the CAD? Like the CAD thing or something? Yeah.
CAD. So essentially what they're trying to do is reconstruct the crime scene. They don't want the jury to go out and actually have a look at the garage, have a look at the bedroom. And Lisa made the comment, thank you and welcome, Lisa, of exactly how small Stephen Avery's bedroom was. It was tiny. And there were a lot of officers in there. Trust me, we're going to go into it. There were a lot of officers in that garage as well. All right. And so it begs a couple of questions. This is the state's hypothesis that Stephen Avery hid Teresa Halbach's RAV4 inside his garage. That's why when people came home from hunting, from work, and they left, nobody saw Teresa Halbach's RAV4, right? So there are two options. Either the RAV4 left, Teresa left the property, which the state don't want you to believe or even entertain, right? You can't have the RAV4 off the property, Jack 61.
Look how much further over Austin put the Stevens truck.
Yeah.
It wasn't over that far. It's manipulation, complete manipulation.
Yes, so, it is. Yeah, it is. But don't worry, we've got plenty of official crime scene photos that'll bring in how it actually looked like. But what I noticed in the garage was a snowmobile. You see the snowmobile to the left-hand side? And for a long period of time, I had no idea what this snowmobile was. It took me, I had no idea until Brendan drew in his image. And right next to the snowmobile, you've got so-called Teresa's RAV4. So the important question is this. When was Stephen Avery's garage first searched, right? When did the investigators actually go in there? So this is the state's narrative that Stephen put in Teresa Halbach's RAV4. And that's why nobody saw it. And that Teresa was killed in that garage. So Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next slide, please. Do you see the slide, Jack 61?
I do.
So the garage was first searched on November the 5th. And guess by who? The first person in there was Remaker and Steyer. Jack 61, would you like to read it out, please?
Absolutely. This is November 5th at 3:58 p.m. we exited Stevens' residence. We went in to an adjacent garage, which is detached from the residence. Investigator Sire found that the door to this garage was locked. Investigator Sire made forced entry into the garage, so he broke the door using his shoulder. The door was opened. Both Investigator Sire and I entered the garage area. We did a search of the interior of the garage, but did not locate any obvious signs of Teresa Halbach. Entry into the garage was made at 16:03 hours. And at 16:06, we left the garage, Remaker.
Okay. So, guys, would you agree that that was a quick search? They were in there for 3 minutes.
Yep.
Right? It was just a
Didn't see
quick
anything.
search. Didn't see anything. Now notice they broke into the garage because it was
Yep.
locked.
Yep.
So these are the first two guys in the garage, Remaker and Steyer. Would you guys agree? They're the first two officers that go into the garage. They had a quick look, looked around, saw no obvious signs of Teresa, saw nothing that really stood out. They were in there for 3 minutes. It was only a cursory look, and they saw nothing of significance. But guess what, guys? Remaker and Steyer wasn't the only officer that went in there, right? If we have a look at the next slide, there was another officer that went in there. That was Lieutenant Kelly Sipple, right? And he went in on November the 5th, the same day that Remaker and Steyer went in. And he arrived on the Avery salvage yard about 2:30, and he talks about the fact that he encountered the so-called Friends of Teresa in the southwest quadrant, which is the opposite side to where the RAV4 was found. But he mentioned that he went inside the garage. Guys, are you happy for me to read what's in green? I could do that?
Yes.
Yeah? All right.
Go for it.
So this is Lieutenant Kelly Sipple. He goes, I quote, "Shortly after arriving at the Avery property, I was teamed up with two Manitowoc CO Sheriff's Department investigators to check the outbuildings of the property for Teresa Halbach. At this point, we believed that there was a possibility that Teresa was still alive. We began searching the outbuildings on the Avery property, and we started with several garages located in the northwest corner of the property. The first garage we searched would have been a red garage, and we found a snowmobile and a Suzuki Samurai motor vehicle. We also found numerous .22 shell casings located on the floor of the garage. We were unable to locate Teresa Halbach in the building," right? So what is interesting here is that when Sipple and the two MTSO officers went in there with him, he's now seeing a Suzuki Samurai, a snowmobile, and .22 shell casings on the floor. This is November the 5th. This is the first day that they're searching. They discover that in the garage, there's the Samurai, there's a snowmobile, and there are shell casings on the ground. Guys, would you agree?
Yep.
Okay, so it's a more extensive report. He's reporting what he found. Well, guess what? The investigators or the law enforcement officers went back in the garage 1 day after. So either Fassbender or Wiegert, whoever was in charge of the investigation, said, no, you need to go back into the garage, right? Sunshine, do you see the next slide?
Yes.
Yep. Would you like to read the first two paragraphs? And Jack61, can you read the final two paragraphs?
Do you want me to read the entirety or just what's highlighted?
A whole lot. This is very important. This is absolutely crucial. They now go back into Stephen's garage. Okay.
So read it all, correct?
Correct. If you could read the first two paragraphs,
Okay.
the shorter one and the bigger one, and Jack can do the last two.
Yep.
Awesome. Pay attention what they did in the garage.
November 6, 2005, I, Detective Remaker, along with Sergeant A. Colburn, Lieutenant Link, and CASO Deputy Dan Kacharski, were assigned to conduct a search and possibly collect evidence from a detached garage belonging to Stephen Avery. 11:06:05 at 0800 hours. We entered the detached garage and began doing an interior search of the building to locate any possible evidence of items. Upon entry, we located numerous areas on the floor of the garage which contained dried blood substances and empty shell casings, which were believed to be .22 caliber casings. Upon locating the items, we placed evidence triangles next to the items to identify each specific area. Photographs were taken by Sergeant Colburn and Deputy Kacharski of the identified pieces of evidence. Again, I used the items from the biological specimen kit provided by the State Crime Lab to conduct the collection of the dried red substances. Sterile cotton-tipped applicators and distilled water were used to collect the items. As the items were collected, they were placed into cardboard drying containers and labeled by item number and time of collection. All of the located shell casings were collected. Also, on the concrete floor within the garage, there was what looked to be a footwear print dried within the red liquid substance. Those prints were photographed, and an attempt was made to lift the print. However, this was unsuccessful. Several red dried liquid substances were collected and obtained on the sterile tipped applicators, and control swabs were taken from numerous locations next to the collected red dried substance. All items of evidence were turned over to Deputy Kacharski, who assisted with the documentation of the collection and identification of items.
Thank you, Sunshine.
Upon inspection of the Suzuki Samurai truck parked inside the garage, I located what appeared to be a smeared latent fingerprint on the rear window portion of the vehicle. A dried red substance was located directly below the rear door area of the vehicle. It was decided to remove the entire back door and glass window portion of the vehicle for further processing. Upon completion of the identification and collection of all items within the garage, officers were completed with the search and collection of possible evidence in the garage at 9:47 hours.
Okay. Now, would you guys agree that this was not a cursory examination?
Not at all.
This was a detailed examination of the garage.
Yes.
Have 4 officers in there. Let me read the names. Let's see if they bring any raise any red flags. Remaker, Colburn, Lenk, and Kacharski. They're in the garage for 1 hour and 47 minutes. This is not a cursory examination. Remember, Kratz kept on saying, well, the reason why these fine officers didn't find ABC is that they only did a very quick examination. Would you agree that 5 officers in a small garage did an extensive processing and search of that garage? They were in there for 1 hour and 47 minutes. Would you guys agree with that? And in chat, this is not a quick 5-minute check.
No, this is an in-depth search. I mean, he's even calling it blood in the beginning.
Yeah.
And he has no idea if it's blood or not. But he changed it to red substance further on down. But still, calling it blood without knowing, come on. You know
Well,
they're in there. You know they're in there talking amongst and say, "God, guys, we got blood here."
and
Yep.
they have the phenolphthalein. I mean, that's such an easy way to confirm whether it's blood or dry transmission fluid. So you would think that these fine, well-educated, skilled, experienced crime scene evidence collectors would have taken the 2-second step of checking it.
That's right.
All right. Just one quick question. Who do you notice is not in there in the garage? Who should have
Well,
yeah, I know Teresa's not there, but who should have been
Uyghur and Fassbender?
right? But who else should have been processing the garage?
Oh, the crime lab.
The crime lab. The crime lab.
They were there.
They were there.
Yep.
So these MTSO officers are chaperoned by Kucharski. They're the ones that went and processed the garage, not Ertl. And he got really, really pissed off because he was there. He's got a photographer. He's got another person to help it. And he's got all the equipment to process the garage. Ertl went later, but Ertl wasn't the first person to check the garage. Jack 61, Sunshine Christina.
Well, it was too late, but Myrtle, yeah, but I mean, they should have been the ones, Myrtle and Zhang and the other, I can't remember the other guy.
Yep.
Should have been the ones in there collecting that evidence. I mean, they were there, and I don't think they were doing anything else as far as I know.
No,
that's what I was going to ask is what were they up to? What crime scene were the actual crime scene analysts processing if you got Beavis and Butthead doing the garage?
I don't think they were, Christina. I don't think they were doing anything at that particular time.
No. And you could tell because we read the trial transcripts. Ertl was very, very frustrated. Ertl was always called last to attend the crime scene, right? So these 4 officers went inside the garage and they processed it, right? But the important thing is this, that a camera, and I think it was Kucharski who took photographs, and I think Colburn took photographs as well. So these are in situ photographs from November the 6th. This is the first time these officers walk into the garage, right? So remember, they're there for nearly 2 hours. So Jack 61, if we look at the next slide, this is a very important picture. This is probably taken by Kucharski, and it shows the inside of the garage. And you can clearly see the Suzuki Samurai and the Ski-Doo snowmobile, right? And we'll talk about both in a second. So there's no doubt, there's no dispute. The Samurai and the Ski-Doo were in the garage. Now remember, Brendan had already gone to Crivets. Stephen had already gone to Crivets. So this is nobody after November the 5th putting in those vehicles. Guys, would you agree? Nobody, because the property was seized. So nobody came back and placed these vehicles in the garage. Guys, would you agree?
That's right.
They had other things to worry about.
Yep, correct. So now, this very interesting narrative, because it now explains what Kratz was saying. Hey, remember that picture that we showed you? No. Those 2 vehicles, they weren't in the garage. They were on the side of the garage. Remember what Kratz said when he asked Blaine, right? So Kratz's hypothesis, no. Those vehicles were placed in later, after October the 31st. Stephen had placed Teresa Horbach's RAV4 in the garage, and she was killed in the garage. So far, so good? Yep. So we can see the in situ picture right here. And if Jack 61 zooms a little bit on the, and I've got another picture to show you, on the Suzuki, on the hood of the Suzuki, you can see the Marlboro cigarettes, the packet in the background, right over there. And don't worry, I've got a better picture. And right at the front, you see a bottle, the black bottle that looks like motor fluid, that you put in a vehicle,
Yeah,
right?
looks like a quarter motor oil.
Yeah. And remember what everybody said about the Suzuki? It had a clutch problem, transmission problem. It didn't run. So keep that in the back of your mind. So there's no dispute. The Samurai and the Skidoo were in the garage. That's very important because you need to explain Brendan's drawing. And I finally was able to decode it. So if we look at the next picture. So what the investigators did, remember there were 4 in the garage. They removed the Skidoo. They took it out of the garage. And Kucharski was asked, well, how come you removed the Skidoo from the garage? And it's because they wanted to check underneath the Skidoo for forensic evidence. If you look at this picture here, guys, the investigators had already removed the forensic evidence from the garage. They'd already processed it and removed it. And on the ground, if Jack 61 zooms in a little bit, see those yellow circles right at the front, the chalk? Yeah, that's where they got forensic evidence. And if you zoom in into the actual garage on the right-hand side, you can see other further circles on the ground, right? So, guys, they've already processed the garage, okay? They've taken all the forensic evidence out that they wanted. If you notice right at the back is where the green compressor is, and there's a toolbox right in front of the green compressor, right? That toolbox doesn't belong to the investigators. That belongs to Stephen, right? So it's interesting that if you zoom back out, Jack 61, what you notice immediately in the garage, if you're looking at the floor, what's your impression of that floor when you're looking at it? What do you notice? Jack 61, what do you notice when you look at that floor?
Well, the forensic evidence is in the front. Their circles are towards the front, right at the door, basically.
Yep. There's also forensic evidence on the right-hand side as well. But if you look on the ground, what do you note is the status of that concrete? What do you notice?
Well, it looks, let me zoom back in here. I mean, it looks okay. There's a crack it runs over here, but
yeah,
I mean, it's dirty. It needs to be cleaned, but
yeah.
I see an oil stain here.
Yeah.
It has not been, it's not filthy, but it's not scrubbed clean.
Right.
That is a very important point.
Yep.
A very important point. So there's stains on the garage floor, correct?
Look at that puddle right above your box. Yeah, right where you're. Oh no, that's my arrow. Now you're circling it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's there.
Yep. So keep that in mind. So what they did is that they removed the Skidoo. On the ground, you'll notice that there are scratch marks.
That's from.
Right? The scratch marks are because they pulled out the snowmobile. And because it's got the feet, it scratched the garage floor.
Yeah.
So they put chalk marks to indicate where it was, and they took it out. Because don't worry, I read the trial transcript. I asked, well, what happened to the garage? Because we pulled out the Skidoo and we scratched the garage floor. But see that little box in yellow? Would you agree that that area appears to be cleaner than behind? It's not as dirty as the area behind. The area behind, you can see the puddles of the oil stains. Right at the front, it appears to be cleaner, devoid of a lot of heavy oil, right?
Yeah.
And it just so happens that Kucharski took another picture, right? You have a look at the next slide. This is going to become very important with what Brendan drew. You can see right at the front, it's much cleaner.
Yep.
And towards the back, it's more oily, more dirty. And you guys, without me prompting, said, oh yeah, look, there's a couple of puddles there, right? Which is very important. So there appear to be areas of the garage which are much cleaner and show less soil staining, Would you agree?
You can also see these splotches in here,
Yeah.
right?
Yep, 100% correct. And those scrape marks that you see are caused by them removing the skidoo, sunshine.
So right in the center where the line is, where the door would come down,
Mhm.
there's like that little red mark. And then it looks like, yep, right there. Like the little red mark in the middle of the lines, and it looks like a 22 caliber shell is sitting up in the mid right there. Do you see that? Do you think that's staged?
It's difficult to tell from the resolution of that picture.
Yeah, it's
Isn't
pretty
that
clear.
odd?
Sunshine, you said a very important point, because if Jack 61 scrolls up further, they missed item FK, which was in the crack of the concrete further up. They missed it.
It was
It's
in there.
actually
It
to the
wasn't
right-hand
there
side.
yet.
Yeah, they missed the flattened bullet when
Yeah, it was
they
right.
took out the skidoo.
It was right in that crack there.
One of the cracks, but they'd missed the flattened bullet. Plus, they missed the bullet underneath the green compressor.
Yeah.
But the point of showing you this is that this photograph shows the garage floor with the skidoo removed. They'd processed all the forensic evidence at that stage. And the garage appears to have sections which look much cleaner. I checked. If you use bleach on a garage floor on concrete, it can cause staining of the concrete. Did you know that?
Mhm.
Yep, and that's why you don't use bleach. You're supposed to use muriatic acid.
Yep, it causes a discoloration of the cement.
That's right.
If it's kept on there for a long period of time. And remember what Brendan said? He said we used a gas, paint thinner, and bleach to clean parts of the garage floor, right? And you can see that part of the garage, the cement looks much cleaner. It's got those whitish street marks in it. But towards the back, you guys said, yeah, look, there's oil stains there. And that's a very important observation. So if Jack 61, if you zoom in the front, see those circles? So that's where they recovered forensic evidence. They put a tent there, took a photograph, and they recovered a lot of forensic evidence. So if we look at the next slide, it becomes very obvious. If you walked into the garage and you saw those two oil marks, those two marks on the concrete, would you agree that they look fresh? They don't look old.
Yeah, absolutely. They look fresh.
They look relatively fresh.
Absolutely.
Which means that the vehicles that were there had leaked. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
They leaked. And it's interesting that the part of the garage that's clean was towards the front of where those vehicles were and underneath where the vehicles were, but there now appears to have fresh leaks. What was the problem with the Suzuki Samurai? It had a transmission problem. Right, Jack 61? Right, Sunshine Christina?
That's right. It did.
Okay. And the way to test for a leak is that you top up the container with the transmission fluid or the oil, and then you check for leaks underneath your car. Agree?
Yeah, we always put a piece of cardboard so it wouldn't stain the garage floor. That's what we did.
Correct.
After learning our lesson, because once it's stained,
Correct.
it's a real son of a bitch to get it out.
Correct. And guess what, guys? There's a phone call between Chuck Avery and Stephen talking about this skidoo. You know what Chuck Avery said the skidoo was doing?
Leaking.
It was leaking. The skidoo was leaking, right? Likely transmission fluid or some type of oil, which is very interesting. So these two stains are relatively fresh. And the way you can account for that is that the vehicles were placed back in the garage. And remember, this is November the 6th. By the time they photographed it, the vehicles had leaked again. Would you agree? That leaked again on the concrete floor.
Absolutely.
And if you look at the next photograph, guys, you can see the reverse angle. And it becomes very, very clear that when you look from the reverse, boom. Would you agree? They are fresh stains on the garage floor.
No doubt about it.
Right? But in front of the Suzuki and where the skidoo were, it's relatively stain free and the garage is much cleaner. Now, the irony is item FK was directly in the crack. They'd missed it.
Yeah,
They'd
something,
missed it.
something else too here.
Yeah.
And maybe the photograph is not, I don't know, high definite enough, but if you look at this stain here, to me, it almost had to have come from the Suzuki, because
Yep.
if this thing was pushed back, there would be a track from that rear wheel through that,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So to
Yep.
me, that stain was not there. They pushed the Suzuki in, and it
Yes.
leaked like hell.
Yep. Correct. 100% correct. And what did Brendan say? That Stephen had cut something and it had leaked transmission fluid.
That's
Right?
right.
So it's very interesting how it's all now coming together just brilliantly. Kucharski was asked during the trial, he goes, well, wait a minute, you're in there for quite a long period of time. How come you didn't find the bullet fragments? Oh, we weren't looking for bullet fragments. He got very angry. Kucharski got very angry. And Strang said to him, well, wait a minute, didn't you recover spent shell casings and pick up blood? Yeah. Well, didn't that mean you had to get close to the concrete to get the samples? And you could tell Kucharski was not happy. He goes, yeah, but you didn't see any bullet fragments. No, we weren't looking for bullet fragments. Remember what Kratz kept on saying? Oh, it was only a cursory look. It was only a cursory examination. These guys were looking for forensic evidence and they took it all out of the garage. They were there for nearly 2 hours. They didn't see item FK and item FL, right? But keep in mind that it looks like the Skidoo and also the Suzuki Samurai leaked again. All right, let's have a look at that. So it's amazing, isn't it, guys? When you look at the photographs again with the information that we've garnished from Brendan and his interrogations and what he said, it now makes sense. Would you agree?
The details are everything.
The picture is now starting to emerge.
Yep.
Right. Now, look at the next picture. This one is one of the early photographs that they took. So they come into the garage. Now, and also people in chat, what's your impression if you come into a garage, you're looking for a missing person that hasn't been seen since October the 31st? Your prime suspect is Stephen Avery. You find the RAV4 on the Avery salvage yard. You walk in the garage and on the ground, you note blood, red liquid, spent shell casings, and lots of footprints. What immediately comes to your mind, Jack 61?
My God, he killed in the garage. There's shit everywhere in here. Come on, guys, let's get it on.
And also people in chat.
Yeah, it would have to be.
Tell me what you guys think. If you walked into this garage and saw droplets of blood, and there were droplets of blood, and I'll show you some pictures, spent shell casings and footprints, what's your immediate thought? You're thinking crime scene. Sunshine Christina, what are you thinking?
I mean, if you're genuinely investigating the disappearance of a missing woman, I would definitely be thinking that I'm going to find evidence that's going to help me find her in a garage where where I have found my only proof of some sort of trauma to a body. And in this case, right, at that point, the only place they have any evidence at all is in this garage.
Yep. Now remember, this is November the 6th. This is
And
before.
they hadn't found anything. They hadn't found anything in the house. Nothing.
No. So this is before Cuss Road, before the finding of the cremains, before the finding of the key, everything. This is November the 6th, right? These 4 detectives walk in the garage and notice drops of blood, spent shell casings, a lot of footprints. They're thinking, and Sunshine Christina said it perfectly, this is evidence of some potential type of violence. Would you agree? Some type of violence took place in that garage.
It's the only place.
Absolutely.
Right? So what do? They systematically collect and catalog all the pieces of forensic evidence that they find on the garage floor. They remove the skidoo, they check the Suzuki, and we'll go over that, and they take out all these items from the garage. Now, if we have a look at the next slide, Jack 61, you can see a close-up. There's no question. That's a drop of blood, right? You can see how the drop of blood has fallen on the ground and little droplets have dispersed out. They would have put a cotton bud and taken a swab, right? But there's no doubt there's blood, there's spent shell casings, there's a lot of footprints. There looks like there's a lot of activity in that garage. Guys, these guys are already thinking, oh my God, this is a crime scene. Something nefarious took place here. Sunshine.
I was just going to make the comment that the fancy word escapes me from a drop of blood. You know, when it drops, then you have the little small things.
Yeah, the
that
satellite.
is not, that is not what you see in the drop of blood in the door jamb of the RAV4.
No, you don't. It just drips down, right? Very interesting. So these guys are coming in, they're going, oh my God. But Jack 61, if you can go back one slide, this very important observation, where do you notice are all the markers? Are they randomly distributed in the garage? Where do you find the majority of those markers?
Yeah, they're on the right-hand side, away from.
They're in a straight line. Yeah.
In a straight line. Yep.
Almost in a straight line.
Yeah.
Right? Which is a very interesting observation.
And away from and away from where Brendan's drawing was on the 27th.
Yeah. Correct. So they're all towards one side of the garage. But again, guys, these guys are coming in, 4 of them going, oh my God, we've got all this blood. We've got spent shell casings. We've got footprints. We've got red fluid. Man, something took place in this garage. We don't know where Teresa Hallbach is, right? Sunshine, did you have a comment?
Well, I was just going to ask, do we know it? They knew about the cut on Stephen's finger. We did have the blood in his bathroom. And,
yes.
And he did let them know that he had cut it in the garage and went to the house to clean it up. So there's that, because he did volunteer the truth of the matter, right? Like
yes.
What happened.
Yes.
So they were armed with what? So I know it's so hard to stick with. We're going with what they said occurred, right? Their theory of the crime. But I think, go ahead.
I was going to say, Sunshine, but if you're the detectives, whose blood do you think that belonged to?
Well, that's where I was going with that. If you're genuinely searching for a missing woman and you do not know where she is, and you truly believe that Stephen is the reason you don't know that, you don't know whose blood it is.
Correct.
But if you know what happened to her and you don't, and you're doing something else here, I guess it really doesn't matter. Does it?
No, no. But if you're the detectives, you're starting to put two and two together here. Who do you think that blood, they're in their mind that blood belonged to?
Teresa.
Teresa's.
No,
No,
I see.
no.
I don't think they knew. I think they knew it was Stevens. I think they knew exactly whose blood it was. Personally, because the entire case is a sham. I'm just gonna put it out there.
No. I agree. But I disagree about what they were thinking, because they found spent shell casings. They didn't know anything about the shooting scenario, nothing. But in the garage, they saw blood, drops of blood. They saw spent shell casings. They're thinking of a potential shooting scenario. Jack 61, Sunshine, do you think that's fair?
I mean, I think to Christina's point, it's hard to separate ourselves away from what we know now. And I can't totally disagree with what she's thinking, but I'm trying to put myself in, these guys' shoes, at least part of them. They come in and, like you said, there's blood droplets, there's shell casings, there's footprints all around this place. And to me, they're probably thinking, "Hey guys, we got a problem here. There's
got a problem."
Yeah, I mean, at minimum, with the blood and the bullets, that's indicative of a potential crime that happened inside that garage. So,
yep, and I'll show you why I believe that they thought that was Teresa's blood, because they did something to the Suzuki that is very important, which steered them in the direction that they thought that Teresa was in there, right? So if we look at the next slide, Jack 61, we've seen that one more. You can see that they're finding shoe impressions. They're finding all these droplets of red liquid in the garage, right? And if we look at the next slide, Jack 61, we can see, oh my God, there's a spent shell casing. There's all these droplets of red fluid. What the hell's going on, right? So this would have been a real concern. So what the investigators did, if we zoom out a little bit, Jack 61, they recovered 11 shell casings on the garage floor. They collected them. All the suspected blood spots, they swabbed, right? They took a swab of all the blood swabs. They obviously didn't know who the blood belonged to, but they found no bullet fragments in the garage, right? So do we have any comments so far? How are we going in chat? Do we have any interesting questions so far?
we actually do. I've just been highlighting them so we can answer them later, Doc, because there's, I think we'll remember where, all these questions are. So I'm just been saving them.
Okay.
So we get
awesome. Awesome. All right. So if we have a look at the next picture, it shows you the shell casings that were collated, right? It's very interesting because remember, Fassbender and Uyghur knew how many shells were collected, 11. And remember what Brendan Dassey said when he was questioned by Fassbender and Uyghur, when he was questioned by O'Kelly. Well, how many times was Teresa shot? And Brendan said, twice, 5 times, 10 times. The kid was guessing. Guys, would you agree? He was giving different numbers. He had no idea. Jack 61, Sunshine Christina, any comments? Sunshine.
I don't know. They're country boys. And so, yeah, I mean, I get the collecting of the shell casings because it's a potential weapon in the case. So, and they know they have the gun above the bed. And so they're probably thinking, well, there's a gun, here's some shell casings. They could be helpful later.
Excellent point. And what was Stephen Avery arrested for on November the 9th, just 3 days after? Possession of a
felon in possession of a firearm.
And remember what they reported in the newspaper? The finding of the 11 shells, right?
Yes.
And they reported blood, etc., etc. They're already linking it together very early on. Stephen Avery was arrested on felon in possession of a gun charge, of a gun, right? So they're starting to link all this together. But however, there was a big problem with their case. So Jack 61, if we look at the next slide, something was not adding up. So they took 6 blood swabs from Stephen Avery's garage, and they're the item numbers. You could check it. It's in Culhane's report. They took 6 blood swabs from Stephen Avery's trailer. Culhane did the PCR analysis. All 12 blood swabs came back to whose blood, whose DNA?
Stephen Avery.
Stephen Avery's. Sunshine.
I was just going to say the same thing Jack said, Stephen Avery's.
Right? So wait a minute. They found these spent shell casings. They found these droplets of blood in the garage, in the trailer. They tested all of them. They all came back as Stephen's. Now, it actually gets worse. On no stage did they find Teresa's blood either inside Stephen's trailer or in the garage. And trust me, they looked. They were there for nearly 2 hours. Anything that looked like a stain, they swabbed. One day prior, they brought in Brutus, who's a human remains detection dog, detects human decomposition. The dog failed to alert in Stephen Avery's master bedroom. Furthermore, the dog, Brutus, alerted in the laundry bathroom area where blood was found. And that blood was swabbed and it belonged to Stephen. So these guys are coming into a crime scene, what appeared to be a crime scene, but there was no evidence of Teresa Hallbark being in the trailer or the garage. Guys, do we have any comments?
That's a huge problem for him. Yeah, that's a huge problem, and Kratz knew it. So did the investigators.
Yep. And now you could understand the importance of the Suzuki. If we look at the next picture, Jack 61, right? When they took the photograph on November the 6th, you can see in the garage, there was the Suzuki and there was the Skidoo right next to the Suzuki, right? Now, when the investigators checked the Suzuki, they found a latent fingerprint on the glass of the Suzuki door. And guess what they found on the ground of the Suzuki, right on the ground? They found a drop of blood.
Yep.
They found a drop of blood. And remember the 2 detectives that did the walkthrough on November the 6th? The hypothesis that they were talking about was that it's likely to be blood from Teresa, right? From the victim. Oh, be careful. Don't step into the blood. Remember, he had the lady officer with him, Jack 61.
Yep. I remember it. I do.
Right? And so they were so interested in the Suzuki. If we look at the next slide, Jack 61, what do? They take the door off. They actually remove the door of the Suzuki. And I can't find anywhere where they match the fingerprint. Have you guys seen anywhere where they match the fingerprint? Sunshine, Jack?
No.
I haven't found any.
I wonder why they wouldn't run that through APHIS to try to get a match.
I got no idea, unless it was non-informative and it was a smear. But guys,
yeah,
Jack 61.
I don't even remember Riddle submitting a report for this. I don't. Maybe he did, but I don't remember it. But
yep, I can't find it anywhere.
Unless they got a match and it was to a cop.
That is possible. Correct.
Well, that wouldn't be good.
No.
That'd be a wrench.
Yes. So the thing is, we don't know whose fingerprint it is, right? But they took the door off. of the Suzuki, and they kept it. Now, if you remember, if we look at the next slide, Jack 61, if you remember all the kerfuffle between O'Kelly and Kaczynski regarding the Suzuki and Bob Yunder's van. Now, we're not going to read this. We already read it in a previous podcast. But on May the 5th, Kaczynski sent Wiegert, O'Kelly, and Kratz an email saying, I think you better check the Suzuki and the van for forensic evidence. Guys, you remember that?
Yes, and I remember O'Kelly. We just read it last week, or week before. He wanted the Suzuki seized.
Seized, right? Seized. Now, believe it or not, look what happened next. Sunshine Christina, do you see the next slide? C4.
Yes.
Are you able to read where it says at the time? It's the second paragraph. So now, look what the detectives, the investigators actually did 3 days after. Okay, Sunshine.
All right. Give it 1 second. Here we go. So do you want me to read the entirety of the highlighted portion?
Where it says at the time. You can start from there.
Okay. At that time, investigator Dietering and I, along with Earl Avery, did go to the area where the Suzuki Samurai was located. It should be noted that investigator Dietering and I did search the Suzuki Samurai and did not locate anything of interest. We also then went to another area of the salvage yard, at which time we did search the Plymouth van and again did not locate anything of interest. You want me to keep going?
Yeah. You read the last
Okay.
section just
In
below.
speaking with both Earl and Charles, they indicated they did not know any new information and that they had previously shared with us everything they knew. Investigator Dietering and I exited the property at approximately 2 p.m. Investigation continues. Investigator Mark Wiegert, Calumet County Sheriff's Department.
Now, guys, Jack 61, do you have a comment?
Well, I went before she read that last paragraph. I wanted to see when this was. This is May the 8th, 2006.
Yep.
So this is after they've communicated with O'Kelly and Kaczynski.
Yes. They went and checked it.
They did.
When Kaczynski sent them the email, they went and checked the RAV4, the Suzuki, and also the van for forensic evidence. Now, wait a minute. This is 185 days after the fact. They went back and they rechecked the vehicles again for forensic evidence. Sunshine Christina.
And this is also after the massive concrete drilling, snow search they did after Brendan's so-called confession and
Correct.
all of that. So that's curious.
Correct. So don't you find it rather bizarre that despite having done extensive search of the vehicles, they went back in seeing if they missed something 185 days after the fact? It's completely mind-blowing, because remember what Brendan was saying. Brendan was saying, oh, we left the knife underneath the seat. We left the gun inside the RAV4. And they went back and they checked again.
They would have to. They have to make their, if they didn't go back, then they're leaving open an argument for, you knew his story was so outrageous, you didn't even bother to confirm any of the details.
Interesting. Right? Now, enter Brendan Dassey. And this is where things get really complex. So we know that on November the 5th, the Suzuki Samurai and the Skidoo snowmobile are in the garage. They've been photographed, they've been checked out. Now, the investigators, Fassbender and Uyghur, are questioning Brendan. And he came up with a couple of very interesting answers on February the 27th when he was interrogated. So if we look at the next slide, Jack 61, are you happy to read Uyghur? And Sunshine
Yep.
Christina, are you happy to do Brendan?
Yes.
Okay, let's go for it, guys.
All right. Uyghur, how you doing? Hanging in there? All right. We got a few more questions for you, okay? Do you help him put anything in the garage or take anything out of the garage?
Yeah. We took the silver cool gray Jeep and put it in the garage.
It's a Jeep or
It's a Suzuki.
and when was and where was that located before you put it in the garage?
On the side of the garage.
Ding.
Do we detect a problem?
Houston, we have a major problem.
Right? Sunshine Christina.
Yes, we have a problem.
And what problem is that? What is the issue here? Remember what Kratz said? The
Well, yeah.
Suzuki and the snowmobile were outside.
That's right.
They were
It's a huge,
outside
huge
the garage,
problem.
and hence the garage was empty, and that's why Stephen put in Teresa's RAV4. You now have Brendan Dassey goes, oh no, I pushed in the Suzuki in the garage. And notice what Brendan said. Where was it located? On the side of the garage. Brendan was 100% correct because family members, including his brother Blaine, saw the Suzuki on the side of the garage. And obviously, Brendan, if he went to get it with Stephen to push it in the garage, had to have known where it was. So would you agree that his narrative is corroborated? He's not making it up.
Yeah, we got a question. And Andy B's confused. That cheeky lad. I'm gonna put it up. I'm going to answer this one now.
He's a cheeky lad.
Yeah, he is. So Andy B says, question: what time was the first November 6th picture of the Suzuki and Skidoo outside the garage? I'm a little confused on how they got it in the garage if they were outside. That's what we're going through right now.
They never took a photograph of either the Skidoo or the Samurai, Suzuki Samurai outside. The only photographs they've got are both vehicles inside the garage. The only people that saw it outside of the garage were family members.
Correct.
So there are no crime scene photographs of either the Suzuki or the Skidoo outside of the garage. Right? So now Brendan is saying, I'm the one that pushed the Suzuki in the garage. This is something that Fassbender and Uyghur were not expecting, because what did Kratz say in court? The Suzuki and the Skidoo were outside of the garage on October the 31st.
That's right.
Brendan is now saying, now I'm the one that put it in, right? On October the 31st. Does that destroy Kratz's narrative?
Kills it. Sticks a knife right in it.
Kratz's narrative. And now that explains why Fassbender went back to Fox Hills, right, Jack 61, right, Sunshine Christina, to question him again.
That's right.
So that first picture, that was both the Skidoo and the Suzuki Samurai was inside the garage.
No, he's talking about that very first picture that Reese took on
that
November
Reese
6th.
There's nothing on the outside. There's nothing out there.
Or you're talking about the diagram, the image thing where Teresa's RAV is inside the garage and they have the what did they have? What did Austin have on the outside?
Oh no, nothing. That was me. That was me saying, "Where's the Skidoo and where's
Oh
the Suzuki?"
yeah,
That's mine.
Stephen's truck, and
Correct.
that's how they got the jury to even consider the possibility, because when you throw in a computer image
Yes.
of the scenario that you want to be believed, if you know it when it's put, it's easy to especially mixed in with real footage
Yes.
of actual photos. It's so that was not an actual photo, it's a computer image, but that's how easily we can they sold them on it. It's
Correct.
also why they didn't let them go out there, because it would have destroyed it, because that garage was nowhere near as big as they wanted the jury to believe it was. I mean, I think they had the jury believing it was like a 4-car garage.
Yeah.
And I don't
I'm looking at the first photo that Andy's talking about. He's confused. You've got it written in there that the Skidoo was parked outside. It's not actually in the photograph.
No.
Doc just wrote it there. This is the photo that Reese took on November 6th.
Correct. So the photograph that Reese took, I should have just shown the original photo. It's just got Stephen's truck parked in front of the garage.
Correct.
What I superimposed were the observations of the family members that prior to October 31st and on October 31st, Blaine saw the Skidoo, Blaine saw the Suzuki Samurai outside, right? But remember, Blaine went trick-or-treating for nearly 2.5 hours. And in that period, guess who put in the Suzuki Samurai? Brendan.
It was Brendan and Stephen. They pushed
Brendan
it in.
explains his statement. I did some of it.
Correct. 100% correct. So there's no photographs showing the Skidoo and the Suzuki Samurai outside. Remember, the detectives went on the property on November the 5th. On November the 5th, the Skidoo and the Suzuki Samurai were already in the garage. Correct. And that's why Kratz said, oh, no, disregard that photo. Both of them were outside. So he wants you to believe that the Suzuki and the Skidoo never got put in the garage, at least on October the 31st. It was after October 31st. Brendan just said, I'm the one that pushed it in with my uncle. Right? So Jack 61, if we look at the next slide, they asked him again. So Jack 61, would you like to read Fassbender, and would you like to read Brendan Sunshine? They asked him again.
Yep. Fassbender, what did you do with that? Was that a Suzuki? And where did you push that?
He had it outside. I just pushed it into the garage.
His garage?
Yeah.
And what else was in that garage at the time?
His moped.
He had a moped in there? Anything else?
The snowmobile, his lawnmower.
Jexy's one, can you take Andy B's comment off the screen? Because I can't see the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, no hassles. You notice what Brendan...
Well, I think he's calling the snowmobile a moped.
I think so. And now I understand why, right? So he again said, no, I'm the one that pushed it in with my uncle in the garage, and asked him, well, what else did he have in that garage? A snowmobile and his lawnmower, right? You know, the ride-on lawnmower. So now comes the most important, I think, document exchange that occurred with Brendan. And we're now able to decode what he meant, right? This is very important. So after Brendan said to them, to Fassbender and Wiegert, I'm the one that pushed in the Suzuki. Remember, Fassbender and Wiegert went to question everyone again on that night? Remember? They went and questioned a lot of family members again.
On the 27th, yeah, they were
On the
everywhere.
27th,
Yep.
right? Guess who came back to Fox Hill at 10 to 11?
It was
Fassbender.
Fassbender and that other
Yep.
special agent.
And they now wanted to speak to Brendan because they're going, he moved in the Suzuki? Uh-oh, this can't be good. So who would like to read this one out?
Well, why don't we split it up? I can
Yeah.
read some and then turn it over to Christina.
Awesome.
Okay? Is that okay, Christina?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
So this is at Fox Hills
On the 27th, yeah.
on the 27th.
While in the room, Special Agent Fassbender asked about an apparent incident wherein Brendan had come home with some bleach stains on his pants. Barbara immediately advised that she remembered that, as did Brendan. Initially, Brendan commented it was the day before Halloween, but then advised it wasn't and that it was Halloween. I think it was the day before. Special Agent Fassbender asked Brendan if he was sure it was the day of Halloween, and he advised yes. Brendan advised that Stephen Avery had asked him to help clean up his garage. Brendan advised that there was an area on the floor similar to the area between the two beds in the motel room. Special Agent Fassbender asked if that would be about a 3x5 to 6 area, and he advised yes. Special Agent Fassbender asked where in the garage it was located, and he advised about 2 feet from the main door of the overhead door. Special Agent Fassbender asked when Stephen requested this assistance, and Brendan said it was about 8 to 8:30 or possibly 7 to 7:30. All right, Christina.
Special Agent Fassbender asked if the Suzuki Samurai was already in the garage, and Brendan advised no. They pushed that in after they had cleaned the floor. Special Agent Fassbender asked what they cleaned off the floor, and Brendan stated he initially thought it was oil. Special Agent Fassbender asked what color the substance on the floor was, and he advised dark red. Brendan was asked if he cleaned it up, and he advised that Stephen helped. Special Agent Fassbender asked how it was cleaned up, and Brendan advised that Stephen first used gas on it, then paint thinner, and then bleach. Special Agent Fassbender asked if the gas worked, and Brendan advised the gas cleaned it up a little bit. Special Agent Fassbender asked what they used to clean it up with, and Brendan advised rags. Special Agent Fassbender asked what Stephen did with the rags afterwards, and he advised he threw them in the fire. Special Agent Fassbender asked if the thinner cleaned up the mess, and he advised it cleaned it up some more. Special Agent Fassbender asked what type of container the bleach was in, and Brendan advised it was in a normal bleach container.
Normal bleach container. Now, there's a lot to unpack. So notice how Brendan said he thought it was either Halloween or the day before. Do we know if Brendan was at Stephen's garage on October the 30th?
He was definitely there on the 30th.
He was definitely there on the 30th.
Almost 9 o'clock. Almost 9 o'clock.
But he said something very important, and that is when he pushed in the Suzuki, it was Halloween.
Yep.
Because Fassbender knew, they would have known that the Suzuki was still outside. So Brendan couldn't have pushed it in on the 30th. Agree?
Agree.
Because Blaine saw it when he came home
On the 31st.
on the 31st.
That's right.
But what Blaine didn't know was that his brother went over to Stephen to help push the Suzuki in the garage. Now, notice he cleaned the floor first, then pushed in the Suzuki. Guys, would you agree?
That's right.
So Stephen basically asked Brendan, hey, look, mate, can you come and help clean my garage? Got some stains on the garage floor. Can we please clean it up? After they clean it up, what do? They bring in the Suzuki. Why? Because Stephen is repairing it. Now, that explains that, remember at the front of the garage, remember Sunshine Christina, the front of the garage appeared to be clean?
Yes.
And
That's
you
right.
made the excellent point. Oh, but there seems to be fresh oil stains underneath the Suzuki and also the Skidoo, correct?
Yes.
Right. So how about this very simple scenario? They clean the garage floor because there's excessive staining and there's evidence of cleaning. They bring in the Suzuki. We don't know when the Skidoo was brought in. We don't know. But they bring in the Suzuki. How about if Stephen refills up the transmission fluid in the Suzuki and adds transmission fluid in the Skidoo and lets them sit there? By the time the investigators come in, they've leaked again, and you can see the fresh marks on the ground. Does that make sense?
I think that's exactly what happened.
They
Yeah.
leaked again. They leaked again. And where did they leak? Underneath the vehicles, right? Underneath the vehicles. And I'll show you a couple of pictures on what the transmission fluid looks like. But Brendan is saying that he helped clean the garage, and notice it was Stephen that threw the rags into the fire. So
That's
they had a
right.
fire going. Wasn't Brendan.
It wasn't Teresa's clothes.
It wasn't Teresa's clothes. It was rags.
Yes.
Right? So there was a fire going. Now, timing-wise, it makes perfect sense. Because notice what Brendan said. It was either 8 or 8:30. That's incorrect. Brendan was over at Stephen's garage on October the 30th at 8:44. We know that. There's a phone record, and we'll play it. But the 7 to 7:30 works, because if he went over to help his uncle at 7, right, guys? That means that Blaine is where? Blaine is trick-or-treating.
Trick-or-treating, yeah.
He's
He's
off
gone.
the property.
That's right.
He's gone. So Brendan goes over to his uncle's, helps with the cleaning up of the yard, throws a few things in the fire, right? Helps clean up the garage floor, pushes in the Suzuki, goes home. And what did Scott Tadich say? I dropped Barb off between 7:30, 7:45. And in a phone call, he talks to Stephen and says the fire was just about done. Correct?
That's right.
So timing-wise, it's perfect. Brendan goes, helps his uncle clean up the garage, push in the Suzuki, attend the fire, whatever, then goes home. His mother sees him at home. So by 7:45, 7:30, 7:45, Brendan is home. The fire is almost done. But one very important point, he helped his uncle bring in the Suzuki on October the 31st, which Blaine wouldn't have seen because Blaine was trick-or-treating.
And it was dark.
And it was dark. He came home at 8:30.
Yep.
So Brendan's story checks out. And that's probably why he said to his mother on the May 13th phone call, I did some of it. He helped his uncle clean.
Right.
Right? And timing-wise, it fits perfect. Brendan was not there for a long period of time. I can't account for Brendan after the Cornelie call up to 7:30, 7:45. That's plenty of time for him to clean up the yard a bit, clean up the garage, push in the Suzuki, and he's home.
Go home.
And he's home. Now,
Yep.
how on God's earth are they hiding Teresa Hallbach's RAV4 when there's a Suzuki in there? How in the hell are they doing this raping, torturing, dismemberment, cremation, getting rid of the RAV4 if Brendan is home by 7:30, 7:45, and Stephen is talking to his fiance?
And on top of that, Scott Taddick talking later about the fire was almost done, 7:45, 8 o'clock.
Talking to Brent, talking to Steve, and Scott is no fan of Stephen.
No.
Yeah. When I dropped off your sister, the fire was almost done. 7:30, 7:45, the fire was almost done. Why? Because he got home at 8 because he saw that crime show.
Yep.
Scott Taddick doesn't live far from the Avery salvage yard, 5-10 minute drive.
At most, couple miles.
Yeah. On Highway 147, you turn right.
Yep.
So timing wise, it fits. What is Brendan's crime? He helped his uncle clean the garage and put in the fucking Suzuki.
That's right.
That's his crime.
That's why he's in jail.
I did some of it.
Yep.
Right? And there are no one remembers the Suzuki after October the 31st. Right?
Nope.
Right? Because Brendan put it in.
It's in the garage.
It's in the garage. And then at some stage, they put in the skidoo. And you can see the fresh oil leaks underneath by vehicles. Brendan's story checks out. And that's why, guys, Fassbender had to convince Brendan that he didn't clean up motor fluid, but he cleaned up
blood.
He cleaned up blood. Do we have a question from Lisa?
Yeah, I figure we'd go ahead and answer it now. Isn't it strange that only part of the garage was cleaned? Was Stephen just trying to clean up the newer stains, or did the old stains just not come up at all?
He probably, my interpretation is that because Stephen works on cars and he was working on the Suzuki because he's trying to repair it for his dad. And by leaving cars for a period of time, especially if they got damaged, they'll leak. So if the garage was heavily soiled, they quickly cleaned the front. And you can actually see the stains in the concrete. They've done a lot of the cleaning on the front. They've got to be careful because remember, they're spilling gas, paint thinner, and bleach. You've got to be careful you don't spill it everywhere. But it brings up sorry, Jack 61.
I was just going to add that, when you have, if it's just a drip, you can just wipe it up. But if it's heavier and kind of pooled up, you want to get that up because, well, number one, of the staining, but there's also becomes, you'll track it everywhere into your own vehicle.
Yeah. And also in your house as well.
In your house. Absolutely.
So it's likely that there was heavy soiling and heavy staining and they just quickly cleaned. I checked the trial testimony. It took Brendan and Stephen 15 minutes to clean up the stain. 15. So time-wise, they had plenty of time to clean the garage, push in the Suzuki. Suzuki might have taken, 10 minutes tops, push it in?
Oh, max.
Yeah. And it was next to the garage, right? It's interesting because you see tire marks going where the Suzuki is. Right, and because you can't drive it, they probably would have had to negotiate it to put it into the garage, right? So it makes perfect sense. Sorry, Sunshine.
The other reason they want to clean it is because it's slick. So if you don't pick it up, you'll bust your butt, especially in a place like Wisconsin with snow and ice and rain and all that. Oil is very slick on concrete. I've busted my butt on oil spills. So you definitely want to get it up where you're walking at. Where it's in the back, it's not as dangerous because you got so much back there. But when you walk in from the outside and it's right there, you'll lose your foot and take a tumble, and then you're in for a world of hurt.
Excellent point. But remember when we showed when they went in the garage, where did you see the blood And where did you see the shell casings? On what side? The left or the right? They were on the, remember the line? They're on the
right.
Remember that. So Fassbender, look what Fassbender asked Brendan to draw. The investigators knew where the blood was. The investigators knew where the shell casings were on the right-hand side. So if Teresa was killed in the garage, where do you think Brendan should have drawn where he cleaned the stain? In the middle of the garage or towards the right side of the garage?
Well, if we're going with the blood on the right being from Teresa, that's where they would have wanted to clean it up at.
Yep, correct. So Fassbender asked Brendan the following. So can we have a look at the next slide? Sunshine, are you happy to read the slide?
Yes, I'll read it. Special Agent Fassbender asked Brendan to utilize a piece of paper provided by Fassbender and draw the garage area with the stain. Fassbender asked him to indicate where the overhead door and the service door were, which he did. Fassbender asked him to indicate where the stain area was, and he did. Fassbender also asked where the snowmobile was located in the trailer, and he showed Fassbender where that was located. Fassbender identified the areas on the drawing. Fassbender asked no further questions, and the contact was concluded. The drawing by Brendan will be electronically attached to the supplemental report and will be forwarded to DCIR.
Okay, so Fassbender knew where the blood was. He knew where the shell casings were. And he asked Brendan, draw me what you did. Guys, can you believe, if we look at the next drawing, next slide, we never got this till a month ago. Correct? No one has seen this.
That's correct. And it also brings up another point, which I'll throw in. I think they had all the drawings from in real time, and I fully believe there are others we've never seen.
Yep. Oh, we know because Brendan drew a lot of drawings for O'Kelly. We haven't seen them.
That's right.
Now, what you notice here immediately, remember, guys, this was only released last month. I looked at it. I looked at this picture and I thought, there's something that's not making sense here. And I notice, and we'll talk about it in a second, but it's where he drew the stain. That's very important. Plus, Brendan said the stain that I cleaned was 2 feet from the front door, correct? 2 feet from the front door.
That's right.
The overhead door. In other words, very close to the overhead door. But he also drew something in there that I couldn't explain. You see on the left-hand side, you see where it's got snowmobile? You see that? I'm there. Wait a minute.
Absolutely.
The only snowmobile I know about is the Skidoo. Guys, is that correct?
Yes.
That's right. That's correct.
That's the only snowmobile I know of. What the hell is Brendan drawing? So if we look at the next slide, guys, this is very, very interesting. So we can now compare both diagrams. The one that he drew at Fox Hills, the one that we only just got last month. And Brendan said that the area that he cleaned smelled like oil. Who, Jack 61 and Sunshine Christina, mentioned blood, that it could have been blood?
It was Fassbender. He's the one that brought it up. Could that have been blood?
Yep. Fassbender. Sunshine Christina, do you have a comment?
No.
So it's Fassbender that said, Brendan, could it have been blood? Well, hell, it looked red, dark red. I don't know. Smelt like oil. Could have been blood. So it's Fassbender that's seeding in the mind of Brendan that what he was cleaning up was blood. And we know that Brendan suffers from syncope. He faints at the sight of blood. But if you look at both diagrams, what you notice is this. You compare February 27th and then March 1st, only a couple of days later, all of a sudden, you've got Teresa in there with Stephen and Brendan, and Teresa's lying on the ground, and see where the stains are? On the right-hand side. Get it? On the right-hand side.
Yep.
Behind the lawnmower. That's where they found all the forensic evidence, the shell casings, the blood, the red stains. On the right-hand side. But look where Brendan said he drew the stain, where he cleaned up. It's right next to the snowmobile. It's not where Teresa Horbach allegedly was on the ground. But what intrigued me is, what snowmobile did Brendan draw? Because the only snowmobile I knew about was the Skidoo. Guys, do you know of any other snowmobile?
I do not.
No. Sunshine Christina, what about yourself? Do you know of any other snowmobile?
No.
And people in chat, do they know of any other snowmobile? So I'm looking at this thinking, oh no, Brendan must be lying. Because, wait a minute, wasn't the Skidoo outside? He said that he brought in the Suzuki.
That's right.
He never mentioned bringing in a snowmobile, correct?
Yeah, that's
Guys,
right.
would you agree? I'm
Yep.
there, oh my God, this guy, Brendan, is lying. He's making this shit up. Okay, we've got the area on the ground that's clean, that complements what Brendan said. We've got Brendan can be corroborated because people saw the Suzuki Samurai outside on October the 31st, and now we see it on the inside. But by God, what the hell is Brendan talking about? This snowmobile. No one's going to put a Skidoo on the left-hand side, then take out the Skidoo again, then put it on the right-hand side. Guys, would you agree?
Completely.
It makes no sense at all.
None whatsoever.
So I'm looking at this thinking, the kid's lied. He's made it up. Oh no, this can't be good. Now, in the trial transcript, they asked him. It took me and my uncle 15 minutes to clean up the floor. That's fine. They put in the bleach, paint thinner, the gas, clean up the floor, hose it down, boom, done. But where the hell is he talking about this snowmobile? So Jack 61, by fluke, you know who they asked about the snowmobile? Jody. They'd asked Jody.
Yeah.
They asked, I found it. They asked Jody. So Jack 61, if we look at the next slide, are you able to read it? Now, this is November the 8th. So remember, this is 2 days after the investigators are in the garage, taking photographs, taking all the forensic evidence. They asked Jody about the snowmobile. Jack 61, are you able to read it?
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Jody was asked about a snowmobile in the garage. She stated the snowmobile she is aware of is quote unquote old, and it is parked against the wall closest to Stephen's sister Barb's residence. She stated this snowmobile is covered with things and she does not know if it is operational. I mentioned there is a newer snowmobile in the area, and Jody stated this snowmobile came from the Avery property in Marinette County. I asked her why Stephen would bring it to his garage, and Jody stated, quote, probably to get it ready for snowmobiling, end quote.
Okay, so Jody said there's another snowmobile. It's an old snowmobile, and she even said it's on the left-hand wall of the garage. Yep. Agree?
Yep.
I'm there. What the fuck are they talking about?
Yep.
So I went through the photographs again, and I went through the walkthrough video. Check 61. Can we have a look at the next slide? Hello. What do you see?
Holy shit.
Is that the first time you've seen it?
I've seen this photograph or seen this image, but it didn't register.
Sunshine.
Yeah, same.
And it's
And
got all kinds of shit piled up on it too. Look at it.
you know what's in front of it?
On
A red moped.
right.
Where the
Yep.
hell did that moped go? What the hell happened to that? Wow.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Well,
What the?
so wait. What Brendan drew was the 1978 El Tigre snowmobile.
Y-
That
Hey,
is on. Yeah, Sunshine.
I was just thinking, didn't Raleigh Johnson want to get some of his stuff out?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All
This is an old snowmobile, right?
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, I looked at the walkthrough video and I just fell on the ground. Brendan was correct,
Yep.
which meant he was in the garage. He drew in the snowmobile, the 1978 El Tigre snowmobile. And right next to the snowmobile on the right-hand side is, guess which vehicle?
The Suzuki.
The Suzuki, right? Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, yeah, but, that's a relatively poor resolution picture. And it is. But Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next photograph that was taken on November the 11th, when they went in there. Oh, you're right. Is that the moped? Or is that a
I
can?
think that's a can. I think
That's a can.
yeah.
The red thing? I think
Yeah.
that's the back of a. Oh, wait, it might be a gas can.
Yeah, I think it's a gas can.
A
Okay.
lid right there, or air hole lid probably over here. Yeah, I think that's a gas can. Okay.
What?
Yep.
So, what's throwing me off is the. Oh, you know what that is? That's a jack stand.
Yes.
It is.
Beside
It
a
is a
gas
jack. It is.
can.
It is a jack stand in front of that gas
Yeah,
can right
and
there.
it looks like an emblem in the back of a moped. Do you see how I'm seeing
Yeah.
that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good call. Good call.
Yep.
You know what
So-
is interesting though is that there's the paint thinner, and then
Yeah,
you
he's-
got a bottle of alcohol, which he probably used to clean his finger.
Yes. Yes. But Brendan was 100% correct. I've seen these pictures for years. I never picked it up.
No,
Never
Guys, did
picked
you
it
pick
up.
too?
Same here.
I had no idea. Remember, we only got that picture 1 month ago. We drew the
Yeah.
snowmobile, and I'm thinking, what the hell's
What
Brendan
the hell?
talking about?
Right.
There it is. The El Tigre.
Wow. Wow.
Right there. But now,
No one picked that up.
and
I never
you
picked it
know,
up.
and what's interesting do we have any photos after March? Did Raleigh come and get his stuff out of the garage?
We got photographs when they came back in March, but
Okay.
I haven't.
Or-
I haven't. Yeah, I haven't done a deep dive analysis of those just
Okay.
yet.
So I'm going to leave that alone until you do that.
Yep. But guys, you have to be impressed. This is now corroborating evidence of what
Oh,
Brendan
yeah.
drew
It's huge.
was 100% spot on. He put in the snowmobile in the correct orientation. He wasn't talking about the Skidoo. He was
No.
talking about the El Tigre. But what is critical is that he drew the garage empty.
Oh yeah.
Empty. He drew the garage empty,
There's
bar the
shit
snowmobile.
everywhere in there.
Now, guys, are you trying to tell me that they're going to move that thing with all the shit on top to clean the garage for?
No.
No chance in hell.
No.
So Brendan told the truth. The snowmobile that he was referring to was the El Tigre, not
Yes.
the Skidoo. And furthermore, the picture that he drew was with the garage empty, as in the Skidoo and the Suzuki Samurai out,
Outside.
which is exactly what family members saw And Brendan Dassey saw both vehicles on October the 31st. He had left to go trick-or-treating. Brendan, in the meantime, came and helped his uncle clean the garage, put in the Suzuki Samurai, which completely blew apart the state's theory that they had Teresa's RAV4 in there.
That's right.
What are they doing? Moving in and out different vehicles. What for?
And one of them, and neither one of them that were moving ran, so it was all manual.
That's exactly right. Right? No one heard a car start up. No one saw a RAV4 being driven anywhere. Right? So now you've got this bizarre situation where Brendan's saying, I went over. My uncle wanted me to help him with his garage. We cleaned up the oil stain and he drew it. Where he cleaned it up, he put in the El Tigre snowmobile because we just pushed in the Suzuki and I went home. That's exactly right. There's no freaking time to bring in motor vehicles in and out, including a RAV4, shoot Teresa Horbach 10 times. And here's the biggest question, and I'll talk about it later. Guys, if the garage was empty and they're cleaning for forensic evidence, what are they doing leaving shell casings out in the open and blood?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember a big running joke back years ago. So Stephen and Brendan picked up all these bullet casings and wiped them off and set them back down. And that's basically truth.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's no forensic evidence on them whatsoever.
No.
They knew which ones to pick up. Right? They knew which ones to pick up and leave because, they got it like that. They know which ones are related to Teresa and which ones aren't.
Correct.
But I do want to mention this explains why Stephen parked his truck the way he did in the front of the garage too, because he knew all that stuff on, like when you're facing the garage that's on the left.
Can't come out.
Yeah, it can't come out. So he can't, if he puts his truck on that side, he can maneuver things in and out to work on it.
That's correct.
Yeah, and if he parked on the right-hand side, it would probably block that man door, which you don't want to do.
Correct. 100% correct. So now we've solved the mystery of the scheme of the snowmobile that Brendan drew. But now
that's a real problem for Fassbender and Wiegert in prosecution.
That's a fucking huge problem. And it may explain why we never saw the photograph from 2006 to now.
Yeah.
Right? So if we look at the next photograph, it's very revealing. This photograph was taken on November the 11th. So now see where my yellow arrow is? That's where the El Tigre snowmobile is, right there on the wall, right? And right next to the El Tigre is the Suzuki that Stephen and Brendan pushed in on the night of October the 31st. And on the Suzuki, you've got a bottle of motor fluid shown in black and with a yellow ring. And right there next to it is the Marlboro cigarettes, right? Because I think Stephen doesn't smoke, but I know his sister and Chuck smoke, right?
And Jody.
And right on the right-hand side is the Skidoo. So now, guys, we have got 2 snowmobiles. Now, to be fair, we don't know when the Skidoo was pushed in, right? Absolutely. But guys, look at the date of that picture, November the 11th. What do you notice on the ground in white circles?
There's oil transmission.
Stains that come back.
Yeah.
The stains.
Different oil stains
that come back.
The ones from the 5th.
Yep. You've now got further staining, which means that both. Sorry, Jack 61.
Well, I mean, if you look at this photo, I'll zoom in a little bit. Look at this photo. There is a huge stain.
Yep.
Underneath the Skidoo, and I mean, I'm guessing it's coming from the Skidoo, and the Suzuki.
Yep. 100% correct. So what Brendan cleaned up initially was towards the front, and don't worry, I'll show you pictures where I superimpose it. But now they put the vehicles in, they've left it till November the 11th, they've leaked again, right? They've leaked again. But
and what's interesting about that is the only people who had the property were the cops.
you got it. Which means what they did on the 6th, they took the skidoo out, right? And they took a photograph, they put the skidoo back in, they left it there from the 6th to the 11th, and you can see they've leaked again. So those vehicles are leaking. So if Stephen had topped up the fluid before he went to Crivets, it's leaked again on the floor. But what is intriguing is that, see to the right-hand side, see where they've put in the white markings? See there? That's where the luminol was. And that's where they were expecting to find Teresa's blood. Because remember the diagram that Brendan drew with Teresa on the ground?
For O'Kelly,
right?
yeah.
Yep, for O'Kelly and also for Fassbender and Wiegert. The problem is that's not the area that Brendan and Stephen cleaned.
That's right.
They cleaned the area at the front, which is exactly where the vehicles are, which is exactly where the stains are.
Another huge problem for Fassbender and Wiegert.
And that's why Kratz never wanted you to ask any questions. And that's why Kratz misused Blaine by saying, see, Blaine said he saw both vehicles outside. Hence, they must have been put in after October the 31st. Brendan, and don't worry, this is going to break your heart when I show you the final slide. It's going to make you really angry. Brendan goes, I went over there, I helped my uncle, and we pushed in the Suzuki. I cleaned the floor. But notice the order, Jack 61 and Sunshine Christina. We cleaned the floor, then we pushed in the Suzuki.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So in other words, this is important because it matches the observations of everyone on the salvage yard who saw the vehicles outside. Because they're trying to think, maybe Brendan is lying. No. The vehicle was outside near the garage, correct? I cleaned the garage floor with my uncle. We used rags. He threw the rags on the fire and we pushed in the Suzuki. I went home. Now notice where those stain marks are, or the chalk marks are, near the tractor, right at the back. And so if we look at this is a big problem. So if we look at the next slide, lo and behold, what do you find in the garage? A big bottle of farm-grade, farm-rated automatic transmission fluid.
That's a gallon. That's a gallon jug.
There's no question.
Maybe a 2-gallon jug. I can't read it, but that's
I checked it on the net. I checked it on the internet. This ATF, automatic transmission fluid. So there's no question Stephen in his garage had transmission fluid. Agree? Yep, plenty of it. And you can see the splash marks of the red all over the place, right? Mm-hmm. So, Sunshine Christina.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I think that white bottle is probably gear oil or the stuff that somebody who knows the difference between if the Suzuki was a stick or a 4x4, it's going to require 2 separate kinds of fluid.
It's probably different. I know what you're talking about. It's called differential fluid.
Yeah, that. I think that's what that white bottle is. And the blue is coolant, right?
Antifreeze. That's right.
It could be antifreeze. Yeah. So Stephen had worked on motor cars for years. When he was in prison, he worked on motor cars, and he loved working on motor cars in his garage, in the shop. They did all of that. Now, what is disingenuous here is that Brendan's not the smartest kid on the block, not the sharpest tool in the kit. So Fassbender on the 27th of February, asked him about, well, did it look like blood? Guys, have a look at the next picture. If you didn't know what that was and you were asked, what do you reckon that looks like? What's your first thing you're going to say that looks like?
It's like blood. Of course it does. Yeah.
Yep. Right? And as you can see, these are pictures that are obtained from the internet. You can see that when transmission fluid leaks from a seal, that looks exactly like blood. And it's dark red, black, dark, like blood. Exactly what Brendan described. And if it leaks from a hose, it's going to leak directly underneath the vehicle. And if you look on the right-hand side, that's transmission fluid that's fallen to concrete. And it looks like blood. And the first person that mentioned, well, did it look like blood, was Fassbender. And Steve and Brendan had agreed. It's not blood. It's transmission motor fluid. And guys, can you see how we systematically went through all the pictures, where the stains were, where the garage was cleaned, and we matched it up with Brendan's drawing that he drew on the 27th of February in 2006.
That's right.
We systematically did it step by step. We cut no corners. We were going, okay, can we disprove Brendan? And the answer is no. We confirmed it. And the snowmobile that he drew in wasn't the Skidoo, it was the El Tigre. And my God, it confirmed what he drew. When he cleaned the garage was empty. Guys, do we have any comments?
Well, we've had several. There's been some good conversation going. And I'm still continuing to highlight the questions.
Awesome. So we got a few more slides, guys. Now, let's check the veracity of what Brendan said. This is a brilliant picture. And Sunshine Christina and Jack 61 already alluded to, look where the truck is parked of Stephen, right? Which means that the right-hand bay is empty. You can move a vehicle potentially in and out, right? But he had the Skidoo there. But look how close the vehicles are to the front door. Any comments, guys? Was Brendan correct that he cleaned 2 feet from the front door?
Yep.
You were right. You were spot on, right? Look how close the motor vehicles are to the front door, right? And remember, you've got the engine at the front, transmission, you've got the leakage of fluid. Brendan cleaned exactly where he put in the diagram. Brendan did not clean right at the back to allegedly where Teresa Horbach lay there dead and bleeding next to the tractor. He cleaned in the wrong spot. And if you're cleaning up a crime scene, you're going to clean up the entire garage. Jack 61.
Oh, no doubt about it. I did notice in this photo, of course, this is several days later, that they moved Stephen's truck because it's now backed in.
Yes. Yep. 100% correct. Correct. So Brendan was telling the truth. So when you look at the next picture, you can see the farce. So the state is saying, okay, we believe that Teresa's RAV4 was placed in the garage. You notice what they didn't put in, and that's why Andy B had asked me the question. And I wrote, where the hell is the Suzuki? Where's the Skidoo? They don't have it. Right, guys? They don't have it in the diagram. They've
It's completely misleading.
Left out.
Yep.
You got no idea. But notice where they put the El Tigre, and they didn't label it. They just put the snowmobile there.
That's right.
On the left-hand side.
Yep.
Right? Now, if you back in Teresa Horbach's RAV4, look at the area in red in a circle, roughly where Brendan cleaned. Is it anywhere near the back of the tractor where Teresa allegedly was shot and lied
N-
bleeding.
No.
No. So it's directly underneath where the engine motor part is, towards the front of the garage. Right? Complete. That's why, if they only had shown that picture in Stephen Avery's trial or Brendan Dassey's trial, the jury would have been thinking, wait a minute, why would they leave blood and bullets, spent shell casings in the garage and not clean them up? Jack 61.
That's right. Well, that's exactly the question.
Right? It makes no sense at all. Sunshine, do you have any comments?
No, I'm just flabbergasted. I'm trying to figure out the moped, because Brendan wouldn't say there was a moped in there if there wasn't a moped in there. You
True.
know what I mean? So I'm just curious, like, and I feel like I've seen one. I just can't remember where. So I'm chewing on that, to be honest with you.
Yep. Okay. So if we go to the next slide, now we're in an excellent position to understand his drawing. So the snowmobile is the El Tigre snowmobile. And if you look where he drew the stain is towards the front, and it's close to the snowmobile, the El Tigre snowmobile. And what you note in the garage is an absence of the Suzuki Samurai and the Ski-Doo snowmobile. And now it makes perfect sense, because both those were outside. Agree, guys?
Yeah, they cleaned it and then they brought him in, right?
Correct. Now, we don't know when the snowmobile, the Ski-Doo, was brought in, but we do know, according to what Brendan said, that he pushed it in with his uncle on October the 31st, Jack 61.
Yeah, just thinking about, I don't know if it was a timing issue or whatever, but if they moved the RAV in, I'm suspicious they moved the Skidoo back in at the same time. I don't know that. We don't know.
There's an issue on the timing because of what Robert Fabian and Earl have said about the Skidoo.
Yes.
But once you see the next picture, it all makes perfect sense. The next picture shows you the garage empty, like Brendan described. And look where the stain is. Rough. You can't get 100% perfect. Is the stain anywhere near the back where the tractor is?
No. Not even close.
No. And so I feel so frustrated that in 2024, this didn't come out in Brendan's trial or Stephen's trial to say, hey, this can't be right, because the area that we cleaned was right here. And I got this is a scale diagram showing you the El Tigre and also where he had cleaned, and the fact that the garage had blood and shell casings. So they only cleaned the stain, the oil. Sunshine.
I just want to say this is that both Stephen and Brendan started and ended with different attorneys than they began with, right? And I think that was a huge handicap, because neither one of them had the same attorneys in March Stephen didn't even, or Brendan didn't even have an attorney in November, but they didn't see how the garage morphed visually over time either. And with the way the prosecution kept doing discovery dumps, and I'm sure there was no ability to try and recognize that shift, like an intentional shifting of the garage to make it appear possible something that just never would have worked, because they could have focused on all of that.
Yeah, 100% correct. And you guys are correct. Look where Stephen Avery's truck is, where they drew it in. So on the right-hand side, the bay is free. Why would Stephen park it there? Because he knew that the Suzuki wasn't coming out, because it didn't run, right? So he can have the bay on the right-hand side free to put stuff in and out, right? But when you look at it like this, it all makes perfect sense. It's a replica of what Brendan drew, right? But now you've got a 3D version of it where the area that they cleaned. And notice what they left out, guys, was the Suzuki and the Skidoo. You don't know where they are. They left it completely out. Jack 61.
Well, again, this goes back to what I said earlier. And Beauty and Strain are correct. This is a complete manipulation
That's
of reality. And
Yeah.
I think this is another reason, and it's smart, I guess, if you're trying to, just win the case, of going really kind of a little bit of a lateral shift to this specialized unit of the Wisconsin State Troopers to use this reconstruction group to create this animation, because now you can just create a crime scene basically, instead of using just the photographs
well,
or
and
taking the
it's
jury out, or taking I'm sorry, Christina, or taking the jury out there and let them see. Go ahead.
well, it's very misleading because Steven's garage was not that clean.
No.
And I think that
No.
his truck is parked the way it is because I think the Skidoo, the one that the 1987 El Tigra, because that entire wall had items on it.
Yes.
Then it had the El Tigra. And I think that the passenger side of his truck probably lined up to how far out the Skidoo that didn't run came. So, and the area from the passenger side of the truck to the opening where the garage door would come down appears much larger
Yep.
in the digital image than it actually is in reality, especially with not all the items that were in there, because that garage was packed full.
Correct. They even said, Trooper Austin even said, it's an approximation, right? It's not 100% accurate, right? But then the next diagram.
But that's misleading in itself.
Of course it is.
Yeah, because what does that mean? It's 98%? No, it's less than halfway accurate.
Yep. The next diagram sent me chills, because now we've got an overhead view of the El Tigra, the Suzuki Samurai, and also the Skidoo. And if you look at the area that Brendan drew of the stains that he cleaned, what do you notice the area is? It's over both vehicles.
They match up.
They match up. Now, that's not me drawing it in, right? That's a 3D reconstruction, and they took measurements. That is frighteningly like Brendan's picture, but without the vehicles in the car, in the garage, which meant that the boys, Stephen and Brendan, cleaned oil and other crap at the front of the garage, just like Brendan said. After they cleaned it, they brought in the Suzuki. And then at some stage, the Skidoo went in. Both vehicles leaked again. And hence, when you see the November 6th, you see the fresh oil stains. On November the 11th, you see more oil on the ground, which complements exactly what the boys did. They cleaned up the oil, right? And we know that this was not a ruse or anything nefarious, because Stephen was repairing the Suzuki Samurai for his dad to use at Crivets. And in the picture, they don't show where the Skidoo or the Suzuki Samurai were. They left it completely out. But now you can see from above the stain area. Now remember, Brendan's not going to draw like Picasso, roughly the area. But we've now got a reference point. We've got the El Tigre. So when you match up the vehicles, the lengths of the vehicles, the stain area that he drew, you can see that it's right towards the front. It is superimposable to the cars, the vehicles underneath. Correct, Jack 61? Correct, Sunshine Christina. That's right. Exactly where the vehicles would leak.
That's right.
So it all matches up perfect. Guys, do we have any questions so far? Right. So it gets worse. If you look at the next picture, you can see that in the garage, there are other stains, and the yellow circles is where they got the forensic evidence. So here's the critical question. If they'd murdered Teresa Horbach in that garage, and they brought in Teresa's RAV4 in that garage, and there's evidence of cleaning that's indisputable, the gas, the paint thinner, the bleach, you can see it on the ground. There are areas which are cleaned, right, compared to the other areas of the garage. Why on earth, if you're so meticulous at removing all biological material of Teresa in the trailer, are you leaving blood and spent shell casings on the right-hand side? See where the stains are? They're on the right-hand side. Everything is there.
That's right.
But they cleaned everything at the front and they left everything over there.
That's right.
It makes no sense, guys. If you're going to kill someone and you killed someone in that garage, you're going to clean the entire garage. You're not going to leave drops of blood and spent shell casings in the garage.
No. They're going to be gone.
They're gonski, right?
Yep.
And then when you think about it, why in the hell would you want to put in a Suzuki back in the garage? Just say, hey, look, officers, my garage is clean. There's nothing here.
There's nothing here.
Right?
Yep. That's right.
Nothing's here. Oh, check the garage floor. Is there any evidence here? No, all clean. See you later. No. Brendan went there to help his uncle to put in the Suzuki to clean the garage floor. That's what he did. And when you look at the other stains which are around, it makes no sense. You're not going to leave blood. You're going to leave shell casings on the ground. It makes no sense. And if you look at the next picture, Jack 61, you can see from overhead. You can see from overhead. See all the stains that are around? They cleaned the front. They didn't even bother cleaning all around the garage. And this is why they became interested in the Suzuki. Why? Because they had a smeared fingerprint on the glass, the back door, and a drop of blood. See where that circle is? I reckon that's where they collected the blood. And their hypothesis was Teresa was somehow attacked. She was in the garage. She touched the glass. Her blood fell on the ground.
But it wasn't true at all.
No. The blood, all the drops of blood were from Stephen.
That's right.
Who works in the garage. And he says, when I work with cars, I cut myself. There are weld marks. I'm always bleeding and stuff like that. But it's scary, isn't it, Sunshine Christina, how the state can engineer a crime that never took place. They engineered it.
And
engineered a crime scene.
That's right.
It's frightening how they can take a bunch of data and string it together like popcorn. You know how people will take popcorn and hang it on a tree with a thread or whatever, fishing line. I mean, that's how this case was literally put together, taking random pieces of evidence and making it I don't even know how they were capable of stringing it together in a way,
And how people believed it.
and
Well,
how, yeah,
well, again, Beauty and String argued against using these animations because they were so misleading. There were big arguments about it. You can go read everybody can go read the brief that they argued about this hearing because it's so misleading and manipulative, and they knew it.
Yeah, it's funny because Trooper Austin said, "Oh, the investigators told me take that out, take that out, take that." So you're not getting a reality of what the garage looked like because they were removing all these objects.
That's right. The garage was a train wreck.
Complete train wreck. All right, now we come to the final part of the presentation, and that's talking about the skidoo. And also, now we bring in Earl and Robert Fabian. Now, remember, these two guys got the day wrong. And we're having this argument with Raven fan Jay, I think, on Discord channel about when Earl went to pick up his glasses, which was the evidence suggests that on Monday night, he went on October the 31st, he went off the Avery salvage and went to pick up his second set of glasses, right? So he couldn't have seen Stephen and the smoking burn barrel, etc., on October the 31st. But he makes a couple of very interesting comments about the skidoo and the Suzuki, right? Jack 61, are you happy to read the slide?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. After finding no rabbits to hunt in the lower pit, Earl drives Robert in the golf cart down the lane to Stephen Avery's residence. Earl first observed Stephen Avery standing, staring at his snowmobile, which is on a trailer attached to Stephen's black pickup truck. Earl recalls the garage door being shut. Earl also recalls the gray Suzuki being on the east side of the garage and that it had been there for a few days prior to Monday. Earl comments that this is strange that the Suzuki would be parked by Stephen's detached garage and had questioned Stephen several days earlier as to why the Suzuki was there. Earl describes Stephen as different and standing very stiff as a board. Earl states it seems as if something is wrong with Stephen, and he's just standing there staring at the snowmobile. Earl recalls Robert Fabian yelling to Stephen about a Polaris. He does not recall seeing a fire. Earl does recall that Stephen Avery is clean and showered. Earl says he is curious why Stephen is unloading the snowmobile off the trailer. Earl tells investigators it was Earl's understanding that Stephen was going to sell or trade the snowmobile or on the trailer to TA Motorsports. Earl doesn't know why Stephen would take the snowmobile off of the trailer and put it in the garage only to have to reload the trailer later to take it to TA Motorsports. Earl says Stephen Avery's look is unusual. He is standing, just staring. He states that Stephen is still not relaxed.
He's stiff and not relaxed, correct. So Earl and Robert Fabian are talking about the skidoo, right? And I found the trailer in which Stephen uses to transport the skidoo from Crivets, right? At Jack 61, you want to show the next slide? The trailer actually belonged to Barb, and there it is. And see, he's got the push down the things at the back. You can fit two snowmobiles.
Yeah, it's a ramp.
It's a ramp. You can fit two snowmobiles on there, right? But again, this photograph was taken on November the 6th. The skidoo is already inside Stephen Avery's garage. So we don't know when Robert Fabian and Earl are talking about the skidoo. But you notice what he said about the Suzuki, where it was there.
Said it was on the east side of the garage, outside.
Where it was. So it's been moved. Okay. So we're nearly done. Have a look. They now question Blaine and Brian about the Suzuki and the snowmobile. Sunshine Christina, you want to read this out? Now, this is November the 7th, one day after the investigators are in the garage and they speak with Blaine. Do you want to read this one out? DCI report, this one is.
Yes, I'll read it.
Thank you.
Blaine was asked what he knew about Steve's snowmobile. Blaine responded, Steve brought this snowmobile back from his grandpa's cabin about 1 week ago. Blaine was with Steve when Steve did this. According to Blaine, the snowmobile was put on a trailer and brought back home. Blaine did not help Steve unload this trailer because the snowmobile had been left on the trailer. As of the week of 10/31/2005, Blaine thought the snowmobile was still on the trailer. Blaine was asked to describe the trailer that was used to haul the snowmobile. Blaine described this trailer as approximately 14 foot long, black metal with a drop ramp and approximately 2 foot sides. Blaine said this trailer is capable of hauling 2 snowmobiles. This trailer is actually Barb's trailer and usually sits on the left side of Barb's garage.
Okay, so we found the trailer. It's the black one. But this is anecdotal evidence that Stephen and Brendan moved the Suzuki in. The Skidoo was brought in after. Agree?
I agree. Yep.
Because the Skidoo is something that Stephen normally does, but the other vehicle, the Suzuki Samurai, doesn't run, and he needs help, assistance to push it in, right? But Brendan Dassey was also asked a couple of very interesting questions, right? I could read the first. We'll take it in turns. Jaxie Swan, you want to read the first paragraph, or the second, and Sunshine Christina the third? Happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Special Agent Wilson asked Brian if he recalls seeing a snowmobile there. Brian said that the snowmobile was brought there from Cribbets 2 or 3 weekends ago, and that he was with Steve when he brought it home. Brian said that it was a Skidoo Mach 1, and it was parked outside with a cover on top of it. Brian was asked if he helped unload the snowmobile when it was brought back from Cribbets. Brian said he did not help unload the snowmobile at all. Brian was asked if he knew where the snowmobile was parked at. Brian said he did not know.
Okay. Brian was asked where Steve's truck was parked at on Halloween when he got home from work. Brian said Steve's truck, which he described as a black truck, was parked in front of the garage. Brian said that Stephen's Grand Am was also there, parked beside the truck. Brian said that the truck and the Grand Am were both drivable, operable vehicles that Stephen had. Before you continue, this is the first time I've ever heard of Stephen's Grand Am being right next to Stephen's truck.
That's right.
And what color is Stephen's Grand Am?
Blue.
We'll leave it at that. Sunshine, you want to continue?
Special Agent Wilson asked Brian about a gray Suzuki Samurai parked in the area. Brian said it was a Suzuki Samurai hardtop that did not run. Brian said the Suzuki was obtained at an auction and most likely needed a new transmission. Brian said the Suzuki was going to be fixed for his grandfather to use up north. Brian said the Suzuki was located on the side of Steve's garage, closest to Brian's place.
Okay, so it is all consistent, right? People saw the Suzuki Samurai, they saw the Skidoo, and they accurately placed it on the left-hand side of Stephen Avery's garage. But this is the first time I've ever heard of the black truck sitting right next to a blue car.
Isn't that interesting? They've kind of like taken the Grand Am out of the narrative.
The picture. That's right.
Yeah.
They did.
And I have something just clicked, and I just want to share this. You know, we have the rando phone call to Teresa that Stephen made after he said she left, where he wanted her to come back out and take photographs if she was still in the area, because he knew she only drove out there on Mondays.
Correct.
I wonder if whatever he had figured out was wrong with that snowmobile. He had an impulsive thought. I'd rather sell it than deal with it. If she's around, I'll have her come snap a pic. I could see that happening.
That is possible, but he said that he wanted the end loader photographed.
Oh, okay. So it was the...
And there was an end loader right down the gravel road.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're correct. Stephen is like that.
Yeah.
Right?
And I wonder if he didn't even remember why, because it was like he got mad because he knew it was going to cost more than he was planning on putting into it or whatever. And so I don't know.
It clearly leaked oil. We saw it. You saw it on the garage floor. It clearly leaked oil. So there was something not right with it.
And I don't know a lot about snowmobiles, but I live in Florida, so I know a lot about jet skis, and they get expensive quick when they start tearing up.
Snowmobiles do too. I mean, for the Suzuki, it could have been as simple as the gasket, but there should be the gasket could have failed, and that's entirely possible.
Correct.
But why did the gasket fail? That could lead to a different and certainly more expensive repair.
Correct. All right. Now we've got two little snippets, two little phone calls. We've played them before, but now they make perfect sense. And they line up with everything we've discussed about the Skidoo and the Suzuki. Jack 61, do you have those two little clips?
I do.
Yep. Awesome.
You may play them back to back or pause between.
You can play them back to back. Yep. Correct.
All right. Here's the first one.
I just got home. I know. We got some walls up, some siding up. The garage sorted out. Brought my Zuki home, some tin, and my snowmobile. Yeah. I just came here 5 minutes ago.
That was October 31st. It's October 30th. 30th.
It's October 30th. So
5:57 p.m.
So he tells Jody, I just came back from Crivets.
Yep.
All corroborated. And I bought what did he bring home? The Skidoo.
The
snowmobile.
That's
correct.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Here's clip number 2.
This call is subject to monitoring and recording. Thank you for using Evercom.
Sit her over there. Hi, honey.
Who are you talking to?
Brendan. And we're just out in the garage. See my new TV?
Okay.
Talking to Brendan, clearly that's at this is at 8:46.
Yeah. So one day prior, Brendan is at Crivets and he comes home too. He's with Stephen in Stephen's garage, helping out, and he said, and Stephen goes to Brendan, see my new TV, right? So when we look at all of that, we can come up with a timeline, but this is going to break your heart because I just picked it up yesterday.
Yep.
Remember O'Neill and Baldwin
Yep.
when they spoke with Brendan? Have a look what Brendan said. Jack 61, would you like to read Detective O'Neill? And Sunshine Christina, would you like to do Brendan?
Sure.
Yes.
Yep, let's go for it. This is our last slide.
All right, O'Neill. So that Monday after she left, when you stayed at the house playing games for 2 hours, Steve did not come over.
Mm-mm.
Did you see Steven at all the rest of the day?
Yeah.
Where at?
In my house. He came over and he needed some help to push the Jeep into his garage because he was fixing it for Grandpa.
What time was that?
About 7 or 8.
How did you help push him in, push it in?
Pushed it in with our hands and
Where did he have to go to get that Jeep to bring it up by the garage?
it was right by the garage.
Oh my God.
Holy
It's right there.
fuck.
Yep, it's right there.
On November the 6th at Crivets, he told O'Neill what he did on October the 31st.
That's right.
Probably at 7, that Stephen came over to get him. And what do? They push in the Suzuki Samurai. Where
Yep.
was it?
Beside the garage.
Right by the garage.
And
Yep.
and let's also remember time change was the day before. And
Yep.
so for him to say 7 or 8,
Correct.
it's because,
one
the
hour
time
difference.
change. Yeah.
Yep. So the tragedy, we got one more slide, Jax, this one after.
Oh, that's right.
The tragedy is that Brendan told the truth. And he said it clear as a bell. And he told O'Neill exactly what he did. Now, notice what O'Neill said. So that Monday after she left, so make no illusion, be under no illusion, Brendan is talking about October the 31st.
Right.
What did he say occurred? Stephen went to get him. No phone call, went to get him.
That's
What
right.
do they do? They push the Suzuki Samurai in the garage.
Yep.
It's November the 6th. Not March 2006.
6 days later.
6 days later. Perfect. So we can summarize this now that we've done all this deep diving. Look at it. It's very simple. So on Sunday, October the 30th, right? Jody calls Stephen at 5:56. Right? These are all recorded calls. Stephen tells Jody that he just got back from Crivets and that he brought home the snowmobile. And Brendan, and we've got Barb's testimony as well, Brendan came home from Crivets as well. So he knows about the snowmobile. He came back. Jody calls Stephen again at 8:44. And Brendan, 8:44, 8:46, depending on what time you use. Brendan is with Stephen in his garage. You can hear Brendan in the background, right? Brendan is moving something in the garage. And Stephen shows Brendan his new TV, right? It is possible, we don't know, that Brendan may have cleaned the garage floor that night. We do not know. But they didn't move the Suzuki Samurai on the 30th because it was still outside, right? On Monday, October the 31st, one day after, Blaine at 3:45 comes home from school with his brother, and Blaine said he observes the Suzuki and the snowmobile sitting outside Stephen's garage. Multiple family members saw the Suzuki outside. It all corroborates. Kratz never asked Blaine, did you see the Suzuki and the snowmobile when you came home from trick-or-treating? No. So Blaine was away for about 2.5 hours. That's exactly when Brendan went over to help Stephen in the time frame that Blaine was away. So it all makes perfect sense, right? So Brendan that night may have cleaned Stephen's garage floor with Stephen. They helped clean the garage floor. Now, Brendan cleaned the garage floor when the Suzuki and the snowmobile were outside, right? You don't clean the floor if you've got vehicles, they're outside. He drew this very diagram on the 27th of February, confirming what he said, right? While he was at Fox Hills. Now, the area that Brendan said he cleaned was 2 feet from the front overhead door. We've seen 3D diagrams that match the area that he cleaned where the vehicle sat. Perfect. So it's not that he put them all the way to the right hand side. No. He drew the stain right next to the El Tigre snowmobile, complementing where the two vehicles were. It's quite clear that they had leaked again. Now, the dark red fluid was not blood that Brendan cleaned up. He even said that it smelt like oil. What it was, very likely transmission fluid from the vehicles. And Sunshine Christina and Jack 61 saw the photos with me, you guys too in chat, fresh oil stain, leak on the ground. Right? So those motor vehicles had issues and leaked. And it's very likely that Brendan helped push in the Suzuki on October the 31st, that night. Makes perfect sense. Now, when you look at the recollections of Earl and Robert regarding the snowmobile being hooked up to the trailer, we don't know the exact day that the Skidoo was brought into Stephen Avery's garage. But at some stage it was, likely by Stephen. He's probably back up the trailer, take it off the trailer and put it into the garage. But the crux of all this is when you think about it, how on earth is all this mayhem meant to have gone on with Teresa, her RAV4, if they clean the garage in one spot, they put in the Suzuki, and Brendan is home no later than 7:45. They physically have no time at all to commit all this mayhem and ultra violence to Teresa Horbach and then get rid of her RAV4. And then what did Brendan say? Oh, I came home, talked to my mum, went to bed. Didn't happen.
And that doesn't even include dismemberment, which, of course, Brendan didn't even talk about.
Yep. Shooting 10 times, the blood, cleaning up the blood. No. The area that was cleaned up clearly was where the motor vehicles were. Right? Now, from a timing perspective, none of it works. And remember, to cremate a human being to tiny bone fragments, you need a minimum of 6 hours and a lot of fuel. Carmen Wench debunked Blaine. Blaine was home by about 8:30 the latest. We know that because he saw his brother. He saw Bobby. They woke Bobby up. Bobby was asleep. And they saw their mum, Barb. So Blaine had to have been home before Barb left at 9:06. Stephen was outside and he saw his sister leave at 9:06. She didn't come back in an hour's time. She probably slept there overnight. So from a very simple deep dive that we did, we've proven Brendan correct in what he said and what he drew in 2006. We finally got to see the picture in 2024, and we can prove that what he said was 100% correct. Jack 61.
Yeah, I think this it's actually more than just it's a little deeper. I mean, you really went after that picture and that that 78 model snowmobile. I can't remember the model, which
The El Tigre.
El Tigre. Damn, is all I can say. So there's a second snowmobile involved, and what Brendan had drawn was correct.
Correct.
It's insane.
You know why it's insane? Because if there was no snowmobile there, kid's making it up.
That's right.
He's making it up. And it was confirmed by Jody, who said, yeah, there was all this sort of stuff on it. And guess
Right.
what? It's jam-packed full of crap.
All kinds of shit laid on top of it.
Yep, correct. So you got independent corroboration. Jody was in prison. And yet she was accurately able to describe the El Tigre. Didn't run, was old, was on the side. Brendan drew it in. That means that the kid was in the garage and he cleaned it, like he said. And it's scary how, isn't it, guys, how Kratz engineered a crime scene that can be disproven. And what is the one item that they're hanging their hat on? Item FL. That's the only outlier that makes no sense at all. And item FL is a troubled piece of forensic evidence. If you can't prove that Teresa was in the garage, how are you going to shoot her and produce item FL if you can't put her in the garage? And how is her RAV4 in the garage where you can't prove that the RAV4 was in the garage? And Brendan was home early, not late. And he was there for 2 days, on the Sunday and on the Monday. And Lord knows what they did on the Monday in picking up the yard, putting the rubbish in the burn pit, and then on the Monday, finishing off the job. And maybe Stephen was finishing the cleaning because he was out there at 8:57 talking to Jody, calm, and he was laughing the fact that when he went over there, he was stirring up his sister saying, oh, Brendan, you're doing the dishes. Now, does that sound the type of conversation you want to have with your fiance when you've just raped and murdered a 25-year-old woman?
Exactly.
And yet,
Well,
the two guys are sitting in prison for life.
I think just looking at all this and listening to you talk, Doc, it brings me back. Let me go back here. This, for me, is everything we've talked about and everything you've just laid out, why Kratz knew he had to use these animations, because they're so misleading. I'm not talking about necessarily this one specifically. I'm just talking about using them at all. They're so manipulative and misleading.
Yes. 100% correct. Yep. And a lot, like I said, the scary thing is we had to do a deep dive to get to the bottom of it. And it's only because I saw that picture and Jack 61 got the documents of the picture that Brendan drew. Now, Brendan had no idea that it was going to be looked at in 2024, right? He drew what he did. Here's the snowmobile. Here's the area that I cleaned. It's empty. That's what my uncle and me did on October 31st. Kratz did not want to hear that at all. It destroyed his theory.
I also suspect, I mean, we got, that one drawing from the 27th, but there are other drawings that you had mentioned before.
We don't have.
No, we don't have them. Considering the colluded relationship between Kaczynski, O'Kelly, Kratz, Fassbender, Uyghur, I suspect they have them all. I think that all that was turned over, or at least a copy of it.
Yep.
Back in real time, and they've got them, and we still haven't seen them.
Yeah, he drew a ton of pictures for O'Kelly.
How O'Kelly was just jumping with glee to get to, insert himself into the investigation. It was his pleasure to turn that over.
He thought it was going to crack the case.
Yeah. He thought he was, he was doing them all a solid, which is slang for, he was hooking them up, which is another slang term. But we always focus on Kratz, and that's because he was chosen as the front man for this poop show. But
Correct.
Fallon and Gone are a league above Kratz as far as district attorneys are. And Kratz never would have been able to pull this off on his own. And I think we need to just put it out there that Tom Fallon and Norm Gahn were instrumental in helping Kratz get this sold. And, you know, I think about how Nyrider, you know, she got a hold of this case while she was a law student interning. And I, you know, a question I have is how many people were also interning? Because I think all attorneys in law school, if they're thinking about doing criminal law, I think they have to do a semester in the Innocence Project kind of thing or whatever. And I wonder how many of them looked at Brendan's case and chose to go into the prosecutor realm because they could have done what was done to Brendan and it not be a problem. You know, because we've got to weed out these people before they get the ability to do this to others.
To do
that's
damage.
That's how we can affect changes. We, you know, we have to recognize what is missing that allows them to think that this type of justice is acceptable, because it's not.
May I add something? May I add something to what you're saying, Christina?
Please.
I think that along with what she's saying, everything we've talked about, this whole scenario here, what she's talking about is correct, but it to me, it needs to be tighter because we're affecting people's real life. And again, none of us here want bad people in society. At the same time, using people for whatever bias that there is, you don't like the cops, don't like them, okay. But for me, this ties directly to the 85 case. I know it does for the rest of us.
Yep.
But to have an audit unit, public audit unit
To oversee.
That's right, to oversee cases. That's right, criminal cases, to make sure that the checks and balances are in place. Because I mean, for me, you saw it in the Delphi case. We see in other cases.
That's going to be big problems.
Well, the checks and balances are pardon my language, but they're fucked. They're gone.
Yes.
This goes back to a conversation, and I swear I'll shut up. They were having the other day on Discord, and this talks about Stephen not being able to confront his accuser, and that goes directly to Adam FL and the hoodlight swab. That came from Brendan, and he was not allowed to go after that, and that's a violation of due process, 6th and 14th Amendment. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just telling you what I've read. So I'll leave it at that.
Correct. Well, look, guys, I hope everybody enjoyed the podcast. It was really interesting doing this deep dive on one picture, just one picture. Yeah. And it's amazing all of a sudden, because remember, we've read all the trial testimonies, we've got all the documents, all of a sudden, the threads started coming together. And as soon as I found that picture of the El Tigre, I just fell on the ground.
That's crazy.
Yeah, hats off to you, Dr. Silkman.
No, not at all.
Attention to detail.
Awesome. No, not at all. And to you guys too. I mean, also people in chat that keep us sharp and ask some incredible questions, and but you see, when you have multiple witnesses corroborating, and the scary thing is the kid told the truth on November the 6th to O'Neill. What'd you do? I helped my uncle. I pushed in the Jeep. He goes, shit, that's November the 6th.
Yep. The only time he lied, he said to his mom, they got inside my head.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And if people, and I want to add something to Jack said, when he said, we don't want people, who have committed crimes to be walking around free. I personally believe what was done to Stephen and Brendan was done intentionally, and I believe it was a crime. And I don't want people like that who can do that to innocent people walking around free either.
100% agree.
Very
If
good
you
point.
use the system to take away someone's freedom, you're going to jail. We don't know when you get out, you're not practicing law ever again. You're gonna have to find another career because you're done.
Well,
Or carrying a badge with the potential, like how could, when the criminals have the badges and the guns, it makes having faith in, in law enforcement difficult. That's right. It really, for me, it really does, because I've personally experienced this, as I know you have, Jax. And so we're talking, and then throughout the years, it's everywhere. Wisconsin, as much as I want it just to be there, it's not.
No.
It's everywhere. Look at Texas, Melissa Lucio, Frank Powell's client, Nicole, the Oklahoma cases with Daniel Holtzclaw and Richard Glossop, that what just happened in the Delphi case. I mean, there's so many. I'm missing more than I'm naming. And then there's all the ones we don't know.
Luke Mitchell
overseas. The gentleman that was accused of killing his stepson that you did some podcasts on.
His father was accused of killing his father.
Yeah, he ended up suing that department and got won $900,000 for what they did to him. That was awful what they did to him.
And then the Nebraska case,
oh my God,
the cousin who admitted killing, I think it was auntie and uncle, blew them both in the head, shot them both in the head. The guy wasn't even there. Then he implicated his cousin who wasn't there. And then you have the crime scene lab guru planting blood inside the cousin's car.
That's right.
And the West Memphis 3. That's another case.
Yeah, and correct.
And then what about the one Frank used to talk to me about? They ended up killing him. They executed him, and he didn't do it. He was in jail when the girl disappeared. And, or actually, I shouldn't say it like that. What I should say is that there was a very limited time frame from when he was arrested and her disappearance, because I'm pretty sure he went to jail either within hours or within a day. Her body was not found for weeks, if not months later, and the forensics on the body made it clear she was held for a significant amount of time before she was murdered. So then they had somebody come in and change the autopsy findings.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that case, it's out of Texas. I'm going to hush and look it up while y'all talk, because don't get me started.
Well, sorry, Jack,
No. I was going to say we've got about 10 or 11 questions, so just whenever.
Yeah, my comment was, from what I've been reading and seeing, it takes an average of about 20 years for someone who's been wrongfully convicted to be taken out of jail. 20 leeway time, we're talking 20 years, if that. So if you're wrongfully convicted, you could expect to stay in prison for about 10 to 20 years, if not longer, before your case is reheld again. And remember, the Innocence Project have got to do deep dives like we did on everything. And
they typically won't take a case unless there's DNA involved. They won't do it because it's so difficult. That they understand that the system's not going to let them go unless you can point the finger at someone, because they want finality.
Yep, correct. 100% correct. And sometimes even when they've got DNA to test, the DA blocks it, says, no, you're not testing that.
Yeah, we're done. Yeah,
We're done.
that's right.
All right, Jack 61. We have some questions.
Yeah. All right. This first one, well, actually, the first one
Oh,
I'm going to say
wow.
to the
Hey,
very.
can I interrupt?
Yes.
Yeah.
Apparently 4 hours ago, a Texas judge finds death row inmate Melissa Lucio innocent. I don't know how clear that is, but
What? Are you
yeah,
kidding me?
it's on the cover of the New York Times.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah.
huge.
November 16th, 5:57 p.m. I'm reading
Wow.
from it. A Texas district judge declared that a mother on death row is innocent in the 2007 death of her 2-year-old daughter, according to court documents filed in October but made public this week. The decision in the case now stands with the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, the state's highest criminal court, which in 2022 halted a scheduled execution of the mother, Melissa Lucio, to gather more evidence. How amazing!
17 years.
Yep. Now she still isn't out,
No,
but
It-
yay!
it's
Yay.
different in Texas. It's different in Texas, and I think they're the only ones that have this. That has to go through the Texas Court of Appeals to say, yeah, okay, you're out, you're done. Or no, we're not going to accept that. Go back to prison. You're done.
Yay! Oh, but that's a step in the right direction.
That's
But-
awesome.
But then again, it's good, but it's scary because it goes to show 1 month, 6 months earlier, the woman's killed.
Yep.
And
Right.
then you go, oh shit! Remember the bite mark analysis cases that we did?
Oh my
Of the
God.
2 African Americans that were
Yeah.
accused of killing and a young 3-year-old girl.
That's
One
right.
of them was on death row.
That's
One
right.
of them was on death row.
That's exactly
And
right.
and also in the Nebraska case, one of the cousins was on death row.
Yep.
So, once you pull that trigger, there's not coming back. You can't say,
What-
sorry.
West Memphis 3 case.
Yep.
Oh, that case is awful. The
Mhm.
case I was looking for was the Larry Swearingen case, and we've discussed that before briefly. It's been some years now. But
Yep.
that case, if anybody wants to go take a look at just how slimy DAs and cops will be when they want to get something done, that's the case. Because I think they even, there was coercion of the medical examiner to walk back his findings on the remains to change. It's just awful.
Oh boy. All right, Jack 61.
Yeah.
Let's
This
get
first
these.
question. This first question is from Corey Zipper. When push comes to shove, Mako was going to say he and Bobby were pushing the Suzuki Samurai. Yes, the same one Brendan helped push. Does this sound like a valid possibility? Well, we don't know.
Michael O'Kelly, ha ha ha.
No, Michael Osmondson.
I know, but I could see O'Kelly being a part of it. That's a oh.
Well, the only downside of that is that it was Stephen that brought it back home, so they can't be pushing. They can't be pushing the Suzuki Samurai.
No. All right. Next question is from Zania.
Oh, you know what? That's interesting, Corey, though. I wonder if he didn't see something else.
Talking about Sawinski?
Yeah, because I've always had a theory that Kathleen Zone, I believe he saw something for sure.
Yeah, he called. He made the call to MTSO.
But Kathleen Zoner has to work with what she has to get the case reopened, right? And
That's
so did he actually see them trying to move the RAV into the garage? Or, I mean, we just don't know. We just don't know. And it was just going to be too much of a mess.
He said it was on Avery Road, so
Avery Road.
he's
Correct.
delivering papers. So,
Yep.
Anyway, okay. Next question is from Xenia. Why the heck are they taking swabs? I guess. Where was the crime lab? Never saw officers take swabs at a crime scene.
What? We're not. It's one of the craziest cases you're ever going to see, right? All these officers had all these detection kits and swabs in their cars, and you're thinking, wait a minute, you got a crime lab. Earl was there, right, with his buddies. They've got all the equipment. Why not call Earl? Nope. The 4 officers went in there. They did the swabbing. Yep. I can't answer that, Xenia. They were in Stephen Avery's trailer too, doing the same thing, taking swabs.
There's too many blank spaces that we don't know what people are doing.
Nope.
No. Okay, next question is from Lisa. Did Stephen tell them exactly where he cut his finger in the garage at this point? He didn't cut his finger in the garage.
No.
Cut it doing some sheet metal, I think is what he said.
Yeah.
And
near Bob's place. Near Bob's place.
Yeah, I can't remember. I know it was on the news. They showed the cut on his hand.
Yes.
I don't remember exactly when he told the cops that may have come out and talk to him. I don't remember, Lisa.
Yep. Yeah, he cut it on November the 3rd when he went to Menards with his brother, Chuck. And so Stephen went inside his trailer, the sink. There was drops of blood. Now, you ask her, that's a very interesting question because we don't know the age of the blood drops which are in the garage.
No.
They could have been months old. You don't know because you can see the blood is actually very dry. And Stephen said, hey, I work in the garage. I cut myself all the time.
I can tell you as somebody that used to work on cars, that's true.
Yep.
You'll bang your knuckles, you'll cut your fingers, you'll slice your arm. There's just any number of things. And you get cut and you just have to deal with it, you know?
Yep, correct. But he did bleed in his grand dam.
Yes, definitely.
Yep.
Okay, next question is from Gazwall. And they asked, not an expert, but if he shot her at minimum of 2 feet, I'm guessing, in that garage. Twice. Okay. In that garage, wouldn't there be a blood spatter projected everywhere, like in the back of the RAV, if they suggested she was shot there?
Correct. That when Brendan said to Fassbender and Wiegert, where'd you shoot her? He gave various stories. One, on the side of the garage, that wasn't good because we can't have Teresa being shot outside. We got no evidence, right? Then how you can explain Ida fell? Ida fell's the inside, right? Then Brendan said, we shot her in the RAV. He goes, no, you didn't. Oh, that's right. No, we didn't. So the idea is she was shot in the garage on the floor. But the problem is there's no fine mist, spatter, nothing. And the luminol created everywhere, right? You saw how many items are in the garage. How is Stephen and Brendan going to clean all the minutiae of fine droplets of blood and organic matter that's going to fly everywhere? And the answer is they're not. And was anything found? No.
And remember the Kratz closing arguments that you found. And he talked directly about her being executed, basically, with the 2 bullets and the 2 skull fragments.
Yep, correct. So there's no evidence of a shooting.
No.
The only bizarre thing is Ida fell, but I could explain Ida. A high school kid can explain Ida fell. Right?
Absolutely.
It's debunked, completely debunked.
Destroyed. Okay. Got one more question from Gazwall. Was Stevens still considered a felon off the back of the 1985 case, or was it related to something else? Yeah, it was the 85 case. He was a felon.
85 case. But you know what? I found the tag where they gave him the license.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No license.
He did.
They
He
gave
gave
it
it
to
to
him.
That's
So
right.
he-
They did.
Yeah, I believe he was a felon prior to the 85 case because of the burglary at the bar. Because I-
Mm,
when he ran his cousin off the road.
well,
Sent
but
us.
he was a convicted felon before
Yes.
that.
I'm
And
not sure if
then-
those were felony charges or not, Christine. I can't remember.
I feel like they were. We'll have to go back and check.
Right. But
And then because that enhanced his sentencing potential in 85 along with the charges he had faced. But what happened, which allowed him to get the gun license, was when he was exonerated.
got exonerated.
They forgot or chose not to. They probably said, you know what? He's been through enough. We're not going to register him as a felon. And he didn't volunteer to, correct it. And was an issue. I used to get in arguments with guilters about this because
Huge issue.
Yeah, because I believe that he wasn't going to be a felon, but then they needed him to be a felon to get him arrested because what was going on the 10th that they needed to stop. That's right.
The civil suit.
So I think there was some quick finagling of paperwork.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Well, Deb Strauss went insane over that. She was on it, man. She contacted a bunch of people over that.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Next question from the Clack family. If Teresa's car was meant to be in there on October 31st, when did they put in the Skidoo and the Suzuki and move the RAV out of the garage? Yeah.
So you've got this crazy situation where they're doing mental gymnastics, moving cars in and out, and hoping to God that nobody sees them.
Meanwhile, tending a fire, cleaning
And
a
burning a
crime
body.
scene.
Correct.
And then let's not discuss the kerf marks on the bones, which are
Dismemberment.
solid. Yeah.
And with Jody talking to Stephen.
Oh, yeah. Multiple crime scenes. Plus taking collect calls and acting like everything's fine.
Correct.
Yeah. Her, spying on his sister and reporting it to her. But no. What's a little thing like facts gonna do when you're on a mission?
No.
Yeah, they get manipulated or left out.
And think about it, right? You got multiple issues going on here, right? If somehow Stephen had to get Teresa in the trailer for a start, and somehow Stephen had to pin her to the bed, according to what Brendan said, without a mouth gag, then Stephen had to, while leaving Teresa, had to then put her car in the garage, move his truck out the way, right?
Yep.
Get her car in the garage, make sure that nobody saw it, because remember, Bobby Dassey was coming home. He didn't see it.
And
So
the junkyard was open.
Yes. And remember, Mama Avery went down there too on her a golf cart to deliver the mail, not Brendan. So you've got all these people coming in and out. He's got no control. And somehow he's got total control of Teresa and a RAV4. And he's got to burn her electronics.
That too.
Everything. And start a big FOIA because he has to cremate Teresa Horbach and then get rid of the RAV4.
That too.
And also,
and then get in the Suzuki Samurai.
And also, the time had just changed. So, and we just experienced time change. Brendan did not get home from school until 4. It would be dark by 6.
Yes.
So they would have been doing 90% of this in the dark.
Correct.
And
That's
that's
right.
huge.
Yep.
Huge.
That's
Yep.
correct.
Doc didn't even include taking off unhooking the battery.
Yep.
Taking the
Removing the
license
license
plates
plate
off.
and then
That's
walking
right.
all the way back.
That's
Moving
right.
the
In
car.
total darkness, in 4,000 cars, in wet mud conditions, in the dark.
Yep.
And no one noticed a thing on Brendan.
Nothing.
Nothing.
And Brendan's home by
7:45,
7:45.
7:30, 7:45.
so they had 2 hours of daylight and 2 hours of dark.
Yeah, I'm guessing it probably got pretty dim. I mean, it does up here once the time changes. Depending if it's cloudy or whatever, 5-ish at the latest. It's probably if it's not cloudy, twilight, and it gets dark really early.
Well, especially the next day. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I'm just now feeling like I'm getting back into the swing of things with
It
this
takes time.
time change. Do y'all do, like, off topic, but do y'all have time change in Australia?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. A couple
All
of
right.
weeks ago, we changed.
All right.
And you're
And
right. And you're
when
right.
did- when did y'all's begin doing that? Like, where did
Oh,
y'all?
long time ago.
decades.
Long time ago. Yeah. Some states in Australia don't have daylight savings. I think most of the eastern board don't, because they're like the sun. There's plenty of sunlight in the eastern board, Gold Coast, places like that. The sun's out all the time. It's just amazing. But in South Australia and other states in Australia, we've got the daylight savings. Put an hour back, an hour forward, and boy, does it make a difference. And you're right,
yeah.
Sunshine. It does take time to get used to it. Your
Yeah,
body,
Oh, yeah.
It
Yep.
really throws you off any kind of rhythm. It makes literally no sense to me.
Not
they
now.
could-
I understand it. Like,
Yeah.
Not
it's pointless.
They try and do it because there's potentially more daylight hours for families to do activities and go out instead of coming home in the dark.
well.
So a
It
lot of
started with
people-
it started with agriculture for the farmers,
Correct.
but now everything's got lights, and it's just at this point it's just not needed for me. I wish they would do away with it. It's so
Like
I don't
in
know.
Australia, you can have 3 different time zones all at the same time.
oh yeah. There's
So
5 here.
So you can go the border of South Australia, and you take one step, you're in one time zone. Take another step, you're in another time zone in the same
right.
spot,
That's right.
depending on which side of the border you're on. It's a nightmare.
It's like
Yeah.
that all across the United States. And there's only, I think Arizona is the only state that is exempt. But there are other counties within the United States that do not follow daylight savings time at all.
Correct.
So this gets even more confusing.
And Sunshine Christina said a very interesting point, because a lot of the guys on the salvage yard were out by an hour.
Yes,
Mhm.
they were. They were.
Very interesting.
I think officers were too. Like, there's a couple of slip ups that I've
Yep.
noticed, and I think it has to do with the daylight savings time.
It changed.
Well,
It changed that day.
Well, there was a
Mhm.
lot of digital stuff around, but not everything in 2005 had converted. People were resistant.
And and then you had, like, the buses were like, I think the timing of, like, the propane truck driver, I think all
Yeah.
of that is open to interpretation.
Oh,
because
no
of
doubt.
the time
John
change.
LeQuern. Yeah, John LeQuern especially. 'Cause
Yeah.
John LeQuern is possibly the number one alibi for Stephen, because he saw a mid-sized green SUV drive right past him.
That's right.
And when you think about the time frame, it fits perfect.
Perfectly.
And John LeQuern was the only one that didn't have a time sheet.
And he didn't see the school bus.
Nope, he didn't see the school bus, which meant that it was before 3:45. Just
Right.
scary. Absolutely scary.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Next question's from Danny. Got a couple of questions from Danny Brewer's fan. Why do they care about the cleaning so much? You can't clean bullet marks, and cleaning leaves its own stains generally, especially on concrete. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yep. I mean, to me, the cleaning of the garage makes sense because Stephen used to work on his cars in the garage, and you accumulate oil and stains, and it becomes a slipping hazard.
Yeah, and it just becomes a nightmare. Like I said, you track that shit everywhere. Once it's on your shoe,
Yep.
I've done it, and I was so angry at myself because I didn't think about it at the time. I got oil in my car, and I never got it out. I never got that oil stain out of my floor mats. I
Yep.
replace it.
Yep.
So.
And Danny said a very good point. They didn't find any bullet marks on the ground.
Nope.
Which brings into Kratz's theory, and also the late BB bulletproof tarps.
Yeah.
On the ground.
Well, and this allowed them also to create a narrative. They didn't have to prove it. They just created a narrative, and then used Austin's animations to make it come true.
Yes, correct. So when you see reality compared to an animation,
yeah,
there's you can't equate them.
No,
I think the cleaning allowed them to insert the cleaning of the crime scene as a explanation for the lack of a crime scene.
Yeah,
that's right.
Because that's the one thing that's missing in this case is we don't know. I mean, and we're just being truthful here. Whoever killed her, it did not occur in Stephen's packed full teeny tiny trailer.
No.
We've got enough evidence that establishes that between the video footage and the crime scene photos. It did not occur in the garage for the same reason. We've got too much evidence that shows no crime was committed there. The cadaver dogs and the blood dogs never hit on any blood or anything in the yard space. There was no obvious sign where, people had tried, like something had happened and you would have some sort of something there, especially with the dismemberment. And
you can't hide it from a dog. You can't hide it from a dog.
Yeah. And the only place we have what has been tested and confirmed to be the blood of Teresa Halbach is in the back of her own vehicle. And
Correct.
It's only enough to corroborate some sort of blow or possible small caliber weapon being used in a splatter, a very tiny amount of blood splatter. And then we have that line of blood where it looks like the cargo mat was removed.
Has been removed.
Yeah.
Yep. Correct.
Yeah. Okay. We got another question from Danny Brewerspan. Who brought up cleaning the floor first, Brendan or the detectives?
No, I think that narrative.
Can't remember.
That's actually a good question.
I think it was Brendan. Because remember, they went back to Fox Hills and they asked him about it, right? And they're asking him about what he had cleaned up and could it have been blood. But actually, that's a very, very good question.
Yeah, we need to research that, try to find out where that came into play. I don't remember.
Well, because, Brendan would say we cleaned up the yard a little. And so they may have honed in on the cleaning part then and used that. But that is a really good question.
The jeans, the stain on the jeans.
Stain on the jeans, that's right.
Yeah,
that's where it came into play.
Yep, that's when it came into play. The stain on the jeans.
And I'm glad you brought that up because, we got those photos and we have those clothes with the brown staining on it that were pulled out of somewhere. We have the empty bleach container, and then we have the other container, which if Stephen would have burned them in a fire that took place on October 31st, it wouldn't have happened. But if the fire had indeed been on the 27th or 28th, and then after they cleaned it up, Stephen threw it into the fire pit to be burned in the next fire, simply just corroborates Brendan's statement even more.
Correct.
Yeah.
They checked all the cans for the presence of blood, and it all came negative. Everyone. So even though they're meant to be handling blood, they're cleaning blood from the floor.
That's right.
Using
There
the
was no
gas.
blood on them. Yeah, there was no blood on those bottles.
Nothing. And they even checked the carpet. Luminol sprayed the carpet. Took Stephen Avery's bedroom apart, and they found no evidence of blood from Teresa.
And the hallway carpet.
And the hallway carpet, correct.
Yep. They didn't find anything. And the creeper. Anyway.
And the creeper too, correct.
Yeah. Now we got a couple of questions from that cheeky fella from
Andy B.
From over the pond. Is that bear confused by the trailer being there and not giving a fuck?
They just put him in. They just put him in.
Yeah. And then one last question from Andy B. Why do you keep keeping me up at night when I should be having my beauty sleep? Well, you know.
For some, beauty sleep doesn't work anymore. Oh, look at me. I can.
Yeah, look at me. Same here. I'm right there with you.
Correct.
All right. I'll say this question that actually Kansas Foxley asked us before we even started, but I saw it and highlighted it. And if you guys want to talk about it a little bit, we can. If you want to move on, this is up to you guys. Hi all. Will it be possible to quickly sound off on the panel for the views on Remaker's trouble? Seems to me that the state has gone for the max humiliation, but minimal lasting damages. It's a great comment.
I think that's probably a question we can do on an open mic.
Yeah. And we probably will tomorrow.
Yeah, but you can see Remaker is all over the salvage yard doing forensic evidence testing. He was one of the first people to be in the trailer. He was one of the first people to be in the garage. So, again, very, very interesting. Well, look, guys, I hope that everyone enjoyed the podcast. It really was a pleasure putting it together. Again, I've learned so much, and I hope that you guys have as well. Thank you so much. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing and to put your DNA in a thumbs up button if you've enjoyed our podcast. And please share. That'll be awesome. So before we go, guys, a quick word from our panel members. Tell us how you're coming along and what you're up to. Jack61, you say, how are you coming along?
I'm doing very well. And as you guys know, and I mentioned, I've sent off 2 open records requests. I'm going to be straight honest with you. This one of them was on Remaker. Yep. I've asked for all the DCI reports. I've asked for at least 3. I think it's 3 different interviews that Walsley, the special agent, had interviewed. I feel strongly that those were recorded. I've asked for those. At the same time, this is still a moving case. I doubt that they will grant my request, but hey, I'm going to ask anyway because, well, let's see. Let's just see. Maybe they'll say, okay, well, we'll give you what we got so far, but I doubt it. I've also asked for updates on requested that's now 4 months. From June 3rd. I made a slight modification. It was a very minor modification 6 days after. So that's actually 5 months old. Sorry, over 5 months. I haven't heard jack shit from Calumet County. I don't understand why. They're basically having to copy CDs. That's it. Just copy CDs. This would be a relatively easy task for a IT person or whatever. I haven't heard a thing, so I asked for an update on that. A couple other things going on, and then Of course, we're going to jump back into the open mic tomorrow with the DCI reports and continue looking through those. Sunshine Christina and I had a great conversation the other night. We were talking about various DCI reports that we didn't have that are there's a lot of questions. So we'll go through those. Some of them are irrelevant. We'll do what we've been doing. We'll move on. But the ones of interest, we're going to stop and talk about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jack 61. Keep up your good work about those FOIAs. Very, very important.
Absolutely. Sunshine
Christy, how about yourself? How are you coming along? And thank you for helping so much on the panel.
Oh, definitely. I'm just grateful y'all want to hear from me.
Of course we do.
So I've been working on getting familiar with the new, and I know it's not new, but it's new to me, the Windows 11, and I'm going to be helping Jax with a project on getting this massive file broken down so we can get it on the Foul Play website.
Awesome.
For other researchers to be able to access and use in their personal research, and at the same time finding interesting tidbits here and there. I like Jax and Kansas. I'm interested in this in Remaker angle. I find the timing of it quite interesting, and I'm curious to see how that unfolds. And I'm probably going to be doing some more digging into him. I know Jinxie had done a great deal of research into him back, some years ago. But Remaker's been around for a while, so it's interesting. And just working on an article discussing O'Kelly and his involvement in this case, and that's it. And then just waiting like the rest of us for justice to be done. I'm excited about Melissa Lucio because that was another case that had a potential to kind of just end with, like of the win being keeping her from dying, right? Because she's on death row.
Yeah.
And so, thankfully, Stephen and Brendan don't have that over their head. Although they talked about bringing it back.
They did.
And that's a scary thought in itself, is that, they're willing to kill people that could potentially be innocent just to make a case go away. And so, we just got to keep talking till they're walking. That's all we can do.
True. Thanks again. Thank you very much, Sunshine Christina. I can't believe it. We've done nearly 4 hours. So with myself, I've been really entrenched in the Delphi murder case. Oh my God. It's going to become the new Stephen Avery, Brendan Dassey case all rolled into one. It is a case that has polarized even attorneys straight down the middle. There are those who are completely convinced of his guilt, and there are those that are completely convinced of his innocence. But they all agree that the manner in which the confessions were done and the manner of Richard Allen's treatment in prison and solitary confinement are just not on. Plus, there's a lot of holes in the state's narrative of what occurred to those two girls. Such a tragic case, and so many errors were made. But I can see a lot of the parallels in the Delphi murders and what happened with Brendan and Stephen in the murder of Teresa Hallbach is just so scary. But again, we've got to keep our ears to the ground and keep on pushing for the truth. We've got one more question.
One more question before we jump out, Doc. From Trav, in your opinion, if they found a piece of evidence that absolutely proved that Stephen and Brendan were innocent, but it was procedurally barred. Could it be used? Well, if it's something new, I think Kathleen, when she finds out about something, I think she has 12 months to file it. I think that's right. So if it was new, like new, it could be used now and potentially free them. If it was something that has already been submitted, there has to be a new trial. If there's a new trial, everything that's been procedurally barred would come in. Doc?
Yeah, very interesting. It's amazing how with new information that's coming out, new documents, pictures, diagrams, drawings, and the analysis of Brendan Dassey and the careful analysis of Brendan, it's amazing how a lot of the case is starting to unravel. And hopefully I can get next week, the podcast will be looking at his self-interview form that he filled out for Kelly. And I'll tell you what.
This is the one in May 13th, right?
Yeah, except there's something weird going on with the date.
Oh, yeah.
Something weird going on.
There really is.
Yep, something suspicious going on.
That's why I said I think that there's, I don't know how much more, but I think there's definitely more.
Yep.
That they did not release.
No. But hopefully we can get that done next week. So guys, please let us know whether you've enjoyed the deep dive and whether you want us to do any further deep dives on certain elements of the case. It takes a long time to put it together, but you can see that they're really worthwhile. Again, guys, thank you so much for joining us, no matter from what platform you're listening on. I'm Dr. Silkman, and I'm from the Foul Play team. And guys, we'll catch you tomorrow. Take care, guys.
Appreciate everyone. This has been Foul Play Production.